The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great.
Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Ads. We love ads. We love ads to start the show.
That's right.
And the show is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissett with you here. Gentlemen, good morning. Happy Wednesday. Off and rolling.
It's a beautiful hump day.
It is.
How are you celebrating hump day today, Kinner? Based on your attire right now, it looks like you're going to travel on the road to watch a great top 25 basketball matchup.
Not a top 25, slightly, just on the outside.
Okay.
Just on the outside of the top 25. But yes, heading to Toledo after this for Wright State Toledo later on tonight.
Toledo is the Paris of Ohio.
I don't think it is.
That's what they said. That's what the brochure said.
But that's his alma mater, Jake.
Brochure. Yeah.
It's his alma mater. He always hypes it up.
Yeah. Again, not Elliot's alma mater, but the Glass Bowl.
Yeah, the Glass Bowl is a magical place, and so is the basketball arena. I will say the basketball arena is very funny. At least the last time I went was a couple years ago, and the seats are all attached to like the same thing. So if one seat moves forward, the whole row moves forward.
That's good
it's
stuff.
It's very, very, very funny.
No, that's good
It's
stuff.
very, very fun. By the way, we have a super chat right off the bat. So I think that was for you, actually.
Was it? Vivek and Elon need to teach you guys efficiency. Hashtag Department of Government Efficiency. Hashtag Trump Vance.
Dogecoin.
It's Doge. Yep. Doge, baby.
Dogecoin's back. Better than ever.
That's right.
Elliot, any political takes to start the show?
Crypto.
I don't want you to miss an opportunity.
Let me see. Do I have a political take? No. I do have a political take. You have to turn your turn signals on when you're turning left. This has become an issue now in America where people don't turn their turn signals on. You got to turn them on. And I'm tired of having to guess. It's sickening. It's sickening. When I'm at a stop sign and I'm going straight and the other person doesn't have their on and they're going left, you got to give them on because I'm just going to go at the same time to keep the flow going. But that's not what they do. It's not what they do.
It's not. I have a political statement I'd like to make as well.
This should be good.
Yeah, Harold Fannin played a standalone game last night, and he had 10 catches for 137 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's the tight end one.
Wow.
That's your guy.
That is my guy.
If you asked Elliot to name 10 players in college football, one of them would be Harold Fannin. And that is strictly because of me. And I think he's the only person in the country that can only name that certain number of players that would include Harold Fannin in it.
The Western Michigan Broncos, tough season for them this year.
When you play the Buckeyes that early in the season, it knocks you off course.
What did they lose that game by?
They lost that game 56-0, I believe.
Damn.
It was a shutout.
Damn, they were in it, though, at the beginning.
They were. It was close.
At the beginning, though.
I think a lot of Ohio State fans were mad about that.
Was that game at noon, or was that game later?
Well, Ohio State played.
That was at night.
Yeah.
It was under the lights. Prime time, baby.
Big time. Shout out Fox for that one. It wasn't even on Fox. It was on Big Ten Network.
Oh man! All right. It wasn't on Fox. That's right. But it was. But that's why. If it was on Fox, it would have been at noon. But it don't matter. But a lot to get into today. Buy or sell coming up around the corner. We will talk some Reds anytime we have an excuse to squeeze some Reds into the conversation. We will. Terry Francona, finalized his coaching staff, and had a lot of people talking yesterday. I know Nick Kirby's excited. There's going to be a special Reds, Chatterbox Reds later on tonight that will preview more. I know there's more, detail that they'll go into, not just on that, but the roster and some other things as well. But let's see what else we got. Talk Bengals, talk college football, college basketball. We got it all covered for you. But before we go any further, let's kick it off with Elliot's headlines.
What?
Oh, as he always says.
Elliot loves three things: Joey Votto, David Bell, and leading off the bench with top headlines.
I was trying to do the finger, and I actually gave the camera a middle finger. Whoops.
Oh, no.
Whoops.
Oh, no.
That's all right. I'll power through that. Headlines. College basketball yesterday. Xavier, they beat the brakes off of Jackson State 94-57. Fremantle led the way for the Muskies, 21 points, shooting 8 for 11 and 4 for 5 from 3. How about that game?
Jackson State gets to go home.
Unfortunately, they will not. They will just be keeping their carry-ons with them as they will fly all over this country until, I believe, mid-January. So good luck to them. Good luck to them. Bad basketball program. 19th ranked Kentucky. They beat 6th ranked Duke last night, 77-72. Andrew Carr, 17 points, leading the way for the Wildcats. Cooper Flagg did score 26, but had 2 crucial turnovers down the stretch. Lost the game for the Blue Devils. Brutal. He only had 3 turnovers, just they all happened to be at the very end. So.
I mean, he's a really, really special player. He's only 18 years old. He's a freshman. I mean, to play at that high a level against that high a competition in, your 4th college game, incredible. But obviously 2 turnovers late is going to cloud a really, really great game. I mean, scoring that many points in a college game is unbelievable.
It's insane. Who's the guy for Kentucky that keeps trolling Duke? Kerr Kriisa.
He's played everywhere, man.
Yeah.
He was on Arizona. I think
really?
He went to West Virginia, and now he's at...
That's right. He was on West
Arizona.
Virginia. Yeah, I remember playing with. I remember UC playing against him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just quick question.
Sure.
Does Mark Pope make Kentucky likable? I feel like the perception of Kentucky has changed because I feel like people were really checked out on Calipari. Where are we at with Pope right now? Does he make Kentucky likable?
I think Pope's fun. I think any team that hires a championship player, a captain of a championship team, will be reinvigorated and follow that player. I think that's kind of the heartbeat of college sports, is bringing those guys back. It's a lot of fun, and I think UK fans are all the way in on Kentucky, and it's fun to see that because it seems like over the last few years at Cal, it's been, who cares about what happens in the regular season? We know how the tournament's going to go, and he'll get some guys drafted after a one and done, but we're not going to win a championship. And it seems like that mentality's shifting in Kentucky, and they're focused on actually building a program. And I think Pope's going to do a good job.
I don't have anything against Mark Pope, but I mean, I'm still never going to cheer for Kentucky. It's just not what's going to happen. I mean, if you have Gandhi as the manager of the Yankees, I'm not cheering for the Yankees. So it's just who the team is. It has nothing to do with the coach. But good for him. Got a big win there. That was the first time in how many years they beat Duke?
It's like 2016, right?
Yeah, it was 2016, I think is what I saw. It's insane.
Calipari was 1-3 against Duke, and Pope in his first attempt against Duke gets that win. I actually was surprised. I mean, I love college basketball. I mean, I'm all over it right off the bat, but I was surprised at how big of a game that felt last night. Obviously, It's Kentucky Duke. I just meant, like, when you tune in, I felt like I was watching a big game. The crowd made you feel like it was a big game. I thought ESPN did a great job with the camera angles. Like, they broke out a lot of new camera angles and looks that they usually don't break out for games. But kudos to them. College basketball felt big time last night, and the sport needs it.
Yeah, absolutely. We got some more big-time games coming up. Teams are scheduling legitimate games in their non-conference.
Yep.
It's really, really good for the sport. I hope that bleeds into football at some point.
It's exciting too, and basketball is so much different than football, where you can lose, like you can have those games and not be like penalized from them. Take care of the conference and see what happens. Continuing on though, Miami, Ohio, they beat Maryland Eastern Shore 88-70. Cam Kraft, former Musketeer, dropped 18 points for the Red Hawks. Number 1 Kansas took care of Michigan State 77-69. Bill Self passes Fog Allen for most wins as the Kansas head basketball coach with 591. Bill Self.
Does he get the field house now?
I think so, right?
I think that has to be how it works. I think that's how it should always
I
work.
wonder who has won more championships, him or Fog Allen. That I
can tell you.
That I don't know, but I feel like if you
pass him and wins, you get the
stadium. You get the arena.
Field house now.
It's now Self Arena.
Yeah.
I think Bill Self deserves it. Give it to him.
Wow. Okay, never mind. I take it all back. Fog Allen was the head coach of Kansas basketball from 1907 to 1909 and then 1919 to 1956. He was also the Kansas head football and baseball coach.
Was he really? At the same time?
It all overlapped.
How many championships? Do we know?
He's won a lot of championships.
All right, well, just get back to me. I mean, okay, then Fog Allen can stay. NBA. The in-season tournament has begun, Kenner. I'm sure you watched that last night. The NBA in-season tournament. The Magic, they crushed the Hornets 114-89. The Pistons, they shocked the Heat in overtime 123-121. The Hawks, they upset the Celtics 117-116. Joel Embiid, our guy, he looked terrible, and I'm shocked. And the Sixers 111-99 lost to the Knicks. He was 2 for 11 with 3 rebounds. Almost like you got to play to be good.
He had
right?
one stretch on the court that was only 3 minutes long.
Tough.
He came in, went up and down, came out.
Tough. The Warriors, they win 120-117 in Clay's return to the Chase Center. Good for them. Steph Curry put on a show. NHL, the Winnipeg Jets become the first team in NHL history to start 15-1. They won last night 6-3 over the Rangers. First 15-1 team in NHL history. And finally, the MLB Silver Slugger Awards are here. Vladdy, Bryce Harper win at first base. Jose Altuve, his 7th Silver Slugger, and Ketel Marte, his 1st Silver Slugger. They win at second base. Bobby Witt, Francisco Lindor at shortstop. Jose Ramirez, Manny Machado, third base. Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Anthony Santander, the outfielders from the AL. We have Jackson Merrill, Teoscar Hernandez, Jurickson Profar, who won it from the NL side. Salvador Perez and William Contreras win it for the catcher position. Brent Rooker and Shohei Ohtani win it for the DH position. And I didn't even know this was a thing. There's a utility position, Silver Slugger. That goes to Mookie Betts and Josh Smith. Those are your Silver Sluggers. They also started doing this thing where they give out a team Silver Slugger to the best offensive teams. That goes to the Yankees and the Dodgers. So congrats to the best.
Way too many awards. Way too many awards.
I love
they're
that
just
the
trying
MLB,
to, everyone gets a trophy.
Yeah, I love that the MLB is really focused on the presentation of these awards, and they do them all at the same time when everyone's focused on baseball.
Yeah.
So who's the Cy Young and the MVP?
We don't know yet.
Oh. When are those announced?
We don't know.
Oh. MLB continues to just shoot themselves in the foot when it comes to growing the game. There's no reason not to have a big night where you announce all the awards. Every other sport does it, and it gets massive ratings.
It should just be where is the guy from Key and Peele? Where's the guy from Key and Peele? And just have him host the thing. Or Conan. Can we get Conan? Conan or the guy from Key and Peele?
Any of the comedian hosts at these award shows have been phenomenal. They're all fun. The NFL awards show is a blast every single year. They've made it I don't want to say must watch, but they've made it a very enjoyable presentation if you're into football and want to see that kind of thing. So I don't understand why baseball keeps doing this. I remember last year they announced it, I think it was right before the kickoff of a Thursday night football game.
Oh, yeah.
They announced the Cy Youngs and MVPs. You're burying yourself on your own will. You're announcing your league's MVP as a news dump. Well, we always say the Bengals and Reds hide their stories on Friday news dumps. The MLB does it with their end of season awards.
Those
if they get a
are your
comedian,
headlines.
if they do get a comedian, just don't get a roast comedian. I heard that doesn't go well. I'm just saying, that could backfire as far as that goes. But all right, off the bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. That was Elliot's headlines. We'll talk a little Reds coming up here around the corner. Terry Francona fills out his coaching staff. Does that matter to you guys? Is there any name that popped up on that list that got your attention, or are we just saying, hey, they got Terry Francona and Terry we trust, and we'll wait for the free agent signings to begin, or if they even begin at all for the Reds. But we'll get to that coming up. This is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. We'll be right back. All right, we welcome you back. Justin Kenner, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissett, Casey McAllister in the producer chair. During your headlines, Elliot, you mentioned some of the NBA scores, and I know we don't talk a lot of NBA, especially in November, but you mentioned the Miami Heat final score. They lost 123-121. Did you see how they lost, by the way?
I did not. So I read that Eric Spoelstra had a timeout gaffe, but I didn't read how it happened or why it happened.
So they had just tied it up at 121. Okay, the game's tied at 121. Eric Spoelstra then is mad. He wants to gather with his team. He calls a timeout. The crowd's celebrating, and then all of a sudden, everyone zooms in. They see the panic on Eric Spoelstra's face, the disappointment. The officials are meeting off to the side, and then, of course, Jalen Rose is in attendance. And Jalen Rose, who, of course, remember, everyone knows what happened with Chris Webber in Michigan back in the day. Jalen Rose, his eyes were huge. He had the surprise look on his face. He was having PTSD right there. The Miami Heat lost 123-121 because they called a timeout that they didn't have, tied at 121, and that allowed them, the opposing team, to go. Who they even play? I didn't pay attention to who they even played.
Pistons. It was the
Pistons. That's right. So the Pistons go to the free throw line and knock out both free throws with 1 point something seconds remaining, and the Pistons win because of Eric Spoelstra not knowing how many timeouts were left. How about that?
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's nuts. Spoelstra's one of the best coaches in the league. That's certainly not something you expect from him.
Brutal.
Yeah, I mean, it's a brutal way to get. I mean, we saw that Bears-Washington Commanders finish a few weeks ago. That's about as bad of a way to lose a football game. The Ravens-Bengals game from last Thursday, where it was obvious, face mask, multiple face masks. They don't call it. What's like the worst way to end a game, to lose a game? I mean, I feel like, for instance, Bengals lose that game on Thursday. Everyone's blaming Zach Taylor. All right, and that's subjective. I don't think it's on Zach Taylor, right? Like, you could blame coaching for the blunder, lack of discipline for the Bears and the way they lost to the Commanders on the Hail Mary a few weeks ago. you could blame coaching. I mean, you can't point at coaching necessarily technically. But for the Miami Heat, you could literally point at the coach and say, you literally lost your team that basketball game and may have cost yourself a chance to win the coveted trophy for the in-season tournament. I don't know. What's the worst way to lose? I feel like the way the Miami Heat just did it has to be right there at the top of the list. I mean, I think that's probably the worst way. I think it's worse than the Commanders. Yeah.
I think the worst way I've ever seen a loss is I think it was either last year or the year before. It was the Miami Hurricanes. Mario Cristobal decided to hand the ball off to his running back when the clock was lined up with the play clock to which he could have taken a knee and ended the game. His running back fumbled. I think it was Georgia Tech recovered the fumble, kicked it at field goal, and won the game. I think that's the worst because it's just not knowing math.
Yeah, the Michigan State one, that football game, that comes to mind. That's one of the worst of all time. You're winning, and you're just trying to punt the ball away and just milk all the clock. Fumble muffs the snap, and they score a touchdown. That's pretty bad. A walk-off balk. You see those in Major League Baseball a couple times a season. Those are pretty damn terrible. I'm trying to think of – I don't think there would be one in hockey that I can think of, unless it's like a goalie across the ice score. But I don't think that happens very often.
Yeah, I don't know enough about hockey to know about the most painful losses. Let's throw it to our hockey expert.
I saw a soccer highlight the other day. And it was a college soccer game. There was 3 seconds on the clock, and as you know in college soccer, once that clock hits 0, it's just dead. There's no extra time like they do in the MLS.
Oh, so you actually know how long the games are?
Correct.
That'd be
crazy. There's no 45-minute extra time, magic period when the game ends.
Unbelievable concept.
But anyway, this college soccer game, and I'm sorry I don't know who the teams were. There was 3 seconds left. It was tied. The guy just legit kicked a Hail Mary. He kicked a Hail Mary from past midfield, and the ball goes into the net with 1 second left. The clock hits 0, game over. That's a pretty bad way to lose.
Yeah, that would stink.
Penalty kicks, tough way to lose. But walk-off balk, and however the hell Michigan lost to Michigan State all those years ago.
You also have the Super Bowl where you chose not to give it to Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah,
that's pretty bad.
I think that's bad. Again, that's a coaching decision that you could point at the coach for when it's all said and done. But again, calling the timeout. A lot of people in the
chat saying 2015 Bengals Steelers is a pretty bad way to go.
That's a bad way to go. That was a bad way to go.
The Vontaze perfect pick with not much time left, and then
Jeremy Hill
fumble. Brutal.
And the worst part was that was just one of the things that then there was the late hit, and then the other late hit.
Coach on the field, and then Ben Roethlisberger not actually being hurt. Yeah, that's still I think the worst loss of my life.
Was it really? That would be you would consider that the worst loss of your Bengals?
I think it's worse than the Super Bowl for sure. Yeah,
I think that's way worse than the Super Bowl. Way worse.
Do we have a Reds example? Is there a loss for the Reds?
Reds is tough because it's the whole meltdown of 2012.
Yeah.
I don't know that you can necessarily put your finger on a game because honestly, that started when Cueto got hurt in a game we won. So
it's hard to pick for the Reds. I know
certainly that series though.
The Reds have had multiple the last year's Pirates loss, not this past season but the season before, the Pirates game when you're up 9 runs and you somehow lose that. And that was pretty much to end the playoff hopes, too.
Yeah.
That's pretty terrible. The Reds have had multiple, 9, 10-run leads and blown it. I'm trying to think of...
No-hitter in the wild card.
No-hitter in the wild card. The Reds have had...
That's the one I had on my list, yeah.
It's a tough one.
The Reds have had a lot of bad ones, man.
Yeah.
But nothing was as impactful. I remember just getting so upset after the Jeremy Hill game.
Yeah, because we were supposed to be getting Dalton back the next week, and that year he was the MVP favorite when he got hurt. I mean, he was playing at an unbelievable level. And it was wide open. Man, yeah, that one still stings.
I saw this pop up, by the way, change a direction real quick here. Black Ops. It was released not too long ago, correct? Everyone makes a big deal about the Kyler Murray record, right? I do. So Kyler Murray, it's actually, we could tell that he's an adult now. We can tell that he has grown up and matured. His record before Black Ops 6 was released, 3-4. Want to know what his record is since Black Ops was released? And this is around the date that everyone circled to say, hey, this is when he's going to crumble once again. He's 3-0. He's undefeated. Our little Kyler Murray is growing up. He's an adult now. How about that? The video game no longer a distraction.
And those numbers are bonkers. Kyler is going nuts, and I absolutely love it. Couldn't be happier for him. I've been a big Kyler believer, really since he came into the league. A lot of the injuries have derailed his career. I picked the Cardinals to make the playoffs this year. I wasn't bold enough to pick them to win the division. They're certainly setting themselves up in a good position to do so right now. They're not quite favored to do it, still leaning the Niners, but it's really close. Kyler at this point is inching his way up the MVP rankings too. He's in 7th. He just passed Joe Burrow after this week in the MVP rankings. He falls in 7th. I think that's a name to certainly watch out for, because if that Cardinals team's able to keep ripping off enough wins, win that division, and he's putting up these gaudy numbers, maybe he sneaks into that award. He's been incredible this year, and I love to see it. For a lot of people that had phoned it in on Kyler Murray after the last few years of his career, it's nice to see him proving a lot of those guys wrong.
Kyler Murray, by the way, I don't want to make fun of him or diminish what he's done over the past 3 games, but he has. I mean, he beat the Dolphins and he beat the Bears. So
yeah,
I'm just saying.
And he scored 31 against the Jets.
He did. The Jets aren't. I mean, the Jets are terrible too.
It's a pretty vaunted defense.
Is the defense good anymore, though?
I don't think so, but that's your guy. That's your guy. They don't even call him Sauce anymore. They call him Ahmad.
That's tough. That's tough. Listen, I don't mean to diminish it. I'm just saying, they haven't beaten anybody. But then again, who does anybody beaten anymore? So there's that.
Well, I mean, the Cardinals sitting at 6-4. It's not just that they're winning, and no one expected them to win. Jacob did, of course, but they're sitting atop a division that we thought was one of the toughest coming in, and obviously injuries have made the Niners vulnerable. Obviously, they're not 100%, but the Niners favorites still to win that division. But I mean, if the Cardinals keep winning and Kyler Murray's playing at the level he is, Jake's right, he's going to be in that MVP conversation. But I think the Cardinals I remember the year that the Dallas Cowboys got Zeke. The Cowboys are drafting that high in the draft mainly because their quarterback at the time, Tony Romo, got hurt. The Cowboys weren't your traditional bad team picking at the top of the draft. They were bad because their starting quarterback was out for the season, and they had to try to find a way to salvage the season without him. That's how they ended up getting Zeke, and Zeke was one of the best running backs in the NFL at that time as a rookie. And that kind of reminds me of what happened with the Cardinals. We looked at the Cardinals picking as high as they were in the draft, and we chalked it up to them just being a bad football team. Well, maybe we talked about how surprised we were at how valuable that Tua Tagovailoa is to the Dolphins. I think what we've learned is just how valuable Kyler Murray is in this league as well. Many people thought the Cardinals made a mistake giving him that big contract heading into last season. Then he goes out, they're picking at top of the draft. He comes back, they're sitting atop the division, right now in the playoff hunt. So I think he's way better, very underrated. I think he's way better than a lot of people give him credit for.
Couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. And Trey McBride's really coming into his own out there.
Very good.
Only played 9 games. He missed a game with an injury earlier this season, but already over 500 yards, 552 yards. He had to score a touchdown, which is incredibly surprising on a team and an offense that's been that good and then being their leading receiver without getting into the end zone. But Trey McBride, a phenomenal pick out of Colorado State a few years ago. I loved him coming out of the draft, and he's really turned it on. I would argue their number 2 option. I think Marv is still probably their number 1 option, but at this point he leads them in targets and yards, so it's hard to argue that he's their number 1. Trey McBride's been great.
And by the way, that's what they need. Look, you're going to pay your quarterback top dollars, and you can go get number 1 wide receiver out of the draft. They're fortunate that they were able to get that and pull that off. Not a lot of teams could do that. The Bills would have loved to find a way to pull something like that off, no doubt about it. All right, this is Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. We'll get into the Reds coming up here in just a moment. I do want to throw this out to Jake because I'm sure he'll get a kick out of this. I don't know why BetMGM is putting out draft comps for top NFL draft prospects.
I saw this.
You did. So I'm laughing because obviously coming into this season, you start looking at early mock drafts. About a month and a half ago, we're seeing Carson Beck as one of the top quarterbacks taken in the draft, along with Jalen Milroe. You obviously have Quinn Ewers and some of the top guys coming out of college. But BetMGM, for whatever reason, they were a little bored. They're getting in the draft comp business. And Carson Beck, for his comps, his ceiling, Daniel Jones with the Giants, who may have taken his final snap for the Giants, with his floor, or ceiling being Daniel Jones, with his floor being Will Levis.
Right.
How about that?
I mean, what an amazing analysis. That just fires me up, man. That just fires me up. Hopefully Haley Cavender's okay with that level of quarterback play.
Why would anybody draft him? I mean, have you?
Yeah, he stinks.
This is like reverse Joe Burrow.
He's terrible.
Joe Burrow in that last year had put on a magical performance and just boosted that draft stock to
infinity. He was the quarterback 1 coming into this season.
Yeah, Carson Beck had the highest draft stock, and it's just plummeted.
Yeah,
he's just not a very good quarterback.
No, that's one of the funniest draft comparisons I've ever seen, because you just took a really bad player and said it was the ceiling, and then the same player and said it was the floor. Like,
you're
giving him no wiggle room to be decent.
Good luck to him, though. I wish him well.
No, I won't.
You're not going to wish him well?
No, I don't wish him well.
So Jalen Milroe made up ground last week, obviously looking as good as he did against LSU. But Carson Beck's the most disappointing quarterback in college football, right? Because Quinn Ewers for a bit was starting to kind of challenge him a bit, but Quinn Ewers still putting up okay numbers. I don't think Quinn Ewers has taken that leap that we expected. I mean, in that Georgia game, coincidentally enough, that's where he gets benched for Arch Manning. Arch Manning wasn't good, so they go back to Quinn Ewers. Still had a chance to win that game. I mean, wild year with quarterbacks where there was a lot of big names at the quarterback position. We felt that we were going to see elite quarterback play. Jackson Dart, another one who hasn't looked as dominant as what we thought. Is Carson Beck easily the most disappointing quarterback in college football?
I think so. I think if Alabama would have continued to trend the way that he was going to go, or that they looked like they were going after that Vanderbilt loss, and kind of compounding that in the next few weeks, I think we could have said Jalen Milroe after the start to the season, but I don't think anyone's close to Beck at this point. I mean, Shedeur Sanders has gotten Colorado to at least the fringe of a Big 12 championship. Yeah. Milroe has Alabama in the hunt. Ewers, Texas only lost one game. I think it's pretty clearly Beck.
He gets paid $2 million a year. So
he was the Heisman favorite.
That's brutal. It's without a question he's the most disappointing.
You mentioned Burrow a little bit ago. I remember that year heading into his final year at LSU. He had a 4th-round draft grade heading into his last year at LSU, and then dominated all the way to the point where he's not just the number 1 overall pick, a national champion, a Heisman winner, and I think he's done okay. He's been okay in the NFL, right? Just slightly.
I think so.
Yeah, he's been all right.
Last point here, and then we'll switch gears over to the Reds. But yesterday you were talking a lot of Bearcats. And your guest that you had on mentioned the fact that you asked him about the possibility of Sorsby being the Bearcats quarterback next year. One point that was mentioned yesterday that I didn't realize that there was a tie-in there to Oklahoma. Oklahoma's been a disaster this season. They have been a disaster. And I didn't realize that there was a connection to Sorsby. A couple weeks ago, we did a buy or sell. Sorsby being the quarterback. Yeah, being the quarterback for Sorsby, or being the quarterback for Cincinnati next season. I bought it because I want to believe that Cincinnati's going to do everything they can to keep him. I just don't have confidence that Cincinnati has the resources to match what Oklahoma is going to potentially be able to do if they need a quarterback. Is Sorsby? I mean, did that make you nervous at all, Elliot? I saw the clip shared on Chatterbox. Does that make you nervous at all? Because I didn't realize that there was a connection to Oklahoma. Oklahoma desperately needs a playmaking quarterback.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, Oklahoma's in such a bad place right now. How many wins do they have this year? They have 4 wins. It's been terrible. And who's their coach? Venables? Is that it? I don't know. Yeah. You have to wait to see what happens after this season, if they're going to make changes and all that. He's a golden boy there. I think it would have to get way worse. Way worse. I don't see him leaving for the bottom of the SEC. I just don't see that as of right now. If they clean house and promise to make the program a little bit better than it is, and that's in the tie-in on top of the millions of dollars he'll probably make, then yeah, he'd leave. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to probably stick with the ship here in Oklahoma, and we'll see what they do. I'm not worried about him leaving for Oklahoma as of this second.
I didn't know that was a connection, and I think Sorsby would. I mean, I expect both Oklahoma quarterbacks to transfer after this year. I think Jackson Arnold's going to leave because the situation with him being benched and put back in for Michael Hawkins and that whole ordeal. I think Jackson Arnold's going to be out of there, and I don't think Michael Hawkins likes how that was handled as well. So I would expect them both to leave. Oklahoma will be starting a transfer quarterback next year. Did not know Sorsby had connections there. Oklahoma has the same record as UC. I mean, Oklahoma's 5-5. They could absolutely make.
Yeah, but I would say there's a little bit different expectations when it comes to the programs of Oklahoma and Cincinnati, right?
Well, right. So wouldn't you go to the program with more money and better expectations?
Yeah, but
they're in the same place right now.
Sure, but if the expectations aren't being met at that program, then it's not a good place to be. UC has just started the rebuild. This is arguably the first year because this is the first year we've.
But he
had
only
Sorsby.
has one more year. That's what I mean. Like it's not like the NFL where he can build.
Sure. No, sure. I guess that's true, and we'll see what he does. That
would scare me if I was a UC fan.
Yeah,
because I think Oklahoma will have a quarterback opening this year.
We'll see. Sorsby hasn't played great the past couple of games, so maybe that keeps him here. I don't know.
Maybe root for a little couple week dip. Well, couple week dip. Keep him in town under $2 million.
I wouldn't hate that, right? I mean, I don't know how to be a college football fan
It's
anymore.
weird.
I don't know how to be it because you want to cheer for your guys to be good, but if
they
you're,
can't be too good if you're a
but
mid-major
if you're a borderline mid-major, then yeah, it's like you can't be the best because then you're just going to get swooped away. That's just the way sports or college athletics has gone, and I hate it, but that's the way it is. Just free
Also,
agency.
I would feel more concerned about it if Cincinnati was still like an American conference team. Like if they were the Americans still, I would be more concerned. To be fair, like I think we have to condition ourselves to realize that the Bearcats, they're a Power 4 team now, right? They're in the Big 12. This idea, I could see if Sorsby was the quarterback of a team that's in the American Conference, you want to get to a high, a Power 4 level team. The Bearcats are in the Big 12, and I do think the one thing that's going for the Bearcats, we haven't seen them. I mean, Oklahoma's having a terrible season. They're having a terrible run with Venables. They were terrible last year. Venables is a golden boy there. Obviously, the former defensive coordinator for won national championships at Clemson, trying to bring that identity to Oklahoma, that hard-hitting defensive team. That just hasn't been the case. So if you're Sorsby, to act like Oklahoma is a better opportunity for a short window for his career, I don't know if that is a better opportunity for him. Cincinnati, to their credit, they are way better than I thought. Way better than I think Jake thought. I think that this team, that Cincinnati, has had a much better season, and I think that just the, obviously the familiarity with the Bearcats, I don't know. I could see him staying. I don't think it's panic mode. I just didn't realize there was a connection to Oklahoma is all.
I mean, it's just about, like, you want to make yourself look as good as possible, and I don't think you can stat pad when you're getting killed by every team in the SEC. I think you have a better chance to do what he's doing this year and to have everybody talk about him having a good season against worse competition. I don't think I do think that will play a factor into it, and I don't think that's a wrong thing. I think it's you want to try to make yourself look as good as possible. You're not going to do that at Oklahoma right now in the SEC, winning 3 games a year.
Oklahoma's 5-5.
3 games a year. I stand by it.
That's why they're 5-5, and I think they're 1-5 in SEC.
I think they're 1-5 in SEC. Yeah.
Yeah. Oof. That has not been. They might be the worst of all the teams that have transitioned to the new conference.
They've been without their top 6 wide receivers for the last 5 weeks. Like that's. I don't know if there's a team in the country that could overcome being without their top 6 wide receivers, and they're still gonna salvage. Well, they probably won't salvage a bowl season, but still, I mean, to be on the brink of a bowl game without any wide receivers and playing 2 quarterbacks all year.
This is why bowl games just don't matter. I mean, they beat Temple 51-3.
Well, they would have to beat Alabama or LSU to get.
They beat Maine 59-14. You beat Auburn, who sucks, 27-21. You beat Houston, who sucks, 16-12. Like, those are your big wins. Like, it's just like,
in order to go to a bowl game, they'd have to beat Alabama or LSU.
Sure, I guess that would be 6. Yeah,
but
that's
to be
one
clear,
good. That's one good win.
Texas has no good wins, and they're ranked 3rd.
Indiana, undefeated. Yeah. No good win. Here's the other take I have too. If I'm a blue blood program and I don't make the playoff, that's the worst thing because I don't want to play the bowl game. Look at Ohio State last year. Ohio State. It's not like Ohio State in weeks 1 through. It wasn't the Buckeyes weeks 1 through 12 that played Missouri. It was a depleted roster of guys. I mean, Kyle McCord opted out, or not opted out. He had entered the transfer portal. You had a lot of top guys opt out. That's the problem is these bowl games. I'm with you, Elliot. I don't put any stock into bowl games, but it is used against them. Ryan Day is being criticized for losing to Missouri when we all knew that wasn't a full Buckeye roster. And, of course, Missouri went into it looking at it as we have a chance to beat Ohio State. Those mid programs are going to look at those opportunities to go get a big win over a big brand, while the big branded schools are going to lose a lot of guys who opt out or enter the transfer portal early. So if I'm a blue blood program that misses the playoff, that's a tough spot to be in because you're probably not going to have the same competitive roster you had all regular season.
I got to stay consistent with my take here is the take I have with Florida State. I think it's a culture program problem if you have that many guys opting out. I don't give people a pass for that. I think Ohio State having all those guys opt out is a massive culture problem. Alabama missed the playoff in, 2023, right before Bryce Young went to the league, 2022, 2023 Sugar Bowl. Bryce Young and Will Anderson were picked 1 and 4. They both played in the Sugar Bowl. It's because Nick Saban had a culture at Alabama where you play in those games. You don't opt out. Georgia last year, snubbed from the playoff, just like Florida State was. They had 1 player opt out of that bowl game, and it's because Brock Bowers had an ankle injury.
Yeah.
They all played. Great coaches and great cultures and great teams play in those games because every single time you get to lace them up means something. And I think that's the biggest telltale of where organizations are coming. I'm not entirely shocked that Florida State's 1-9 this year. If you're going to have every single one of your players pack it up and go home when you get snubbed from the playoffs, you don't have a very good thing built.
And by the way, I agree with you 100%. But and the one thing too, Kirby Smart, great culture over at Georgia, right? No, the kind of culture you're talking about.
Football-wise, yeah. He's more mad about his player celebrating with the other team after they rush the field than any of the 45 driving infractions they've had this year.
No, that's why I didn't even connect those dots when people were mad. So he called out his player saying, "What an idiot!" He called his player an idiot for celebrating with a friend on the opposing team after they got beat. He was more upset about that than any of the off-the-field issues, and that's the angle that people are trying to frame them with. It's kind of wild. So, All right, maybe now we could talk Reds. Sorry,
we'll try. Let's try it.
Well,
let's try it.
You know. All right, Terry Francona finalized his coaching staff and announced it yesterday. And, of course, I'm kind of curious your guys' thoughts as we dissect the coaching staff. Take a look at it. Does it move the needle for you? We'll discuss when we come back. This is Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. All right, Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing with you here. This is Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. All right, we'll get back into some more college football stuff coming up here around the corner. Last night, the 12-team college football playoff rankings were revealed for the second week. And there was only one kind of surprise. There was only one little wrinkle that caught me by surprise and everybody else, and we'll talk about that coming up in a bit. But let's talk a little Cincinnati Reds. Terry Francona, of course, was the biggest, obviously off-season news thus far, even though the Reds off-season was going on while the most important part of the season was going on, the playoffs. But they landed arguably the biggest name out there for their managerial position, which was Terry Francona. And I kind of forgot that, he hadn't put the whole staff together yet. But they announced yesterday that the full staff is together. And I know Casey has it. He'll pop it up on the screen here. Take a look, guys. Is there anything on here? I know Valeka, we talked about him a few weeks ago. But is there anyone that stands out to you? We knew Derek Johnson was going to stay as the director of pitching and the pitching coach. Freddie Benavidez stays on, the bench coach and the field coordinator. Some recognizable names there. But any names pop off that list for Terry Francona's coaching staff?
I'm just really, really glad to see my guy J.R. House.
I was going to say, there's only one.
Cincy.
There's only one name.
How many times do we sit on this show and just blame J.R. House for single-handedly losing us games? And then he's still going to be the third base coach. But it is important to remember he's also the catching coach. Tyler Stevenson's taken massive steps behind the plate over the last few years. And I don't know how much of that to attribute to J.R. House, but you have to give a little bit of credit to him in that sense. So maybe that's part of it as well.
So hand up to me, I did not know he was the catching coach. I did not know that. I thought he was just the third base coach. I thought he was just the guy sending him home. Not the case. He is a catching coach, and I do commend him for his work with Tyler Stevenson. I did not know that. Saying that, I mean, can we move him off third base? Let's just have him focus on the catching position, and we'll get somebody else at third base. I love Colin Cowgill staying at first. Derek Johnson, we knew he was going to stay, but it's good to see Derek Johnson stay here. Chris Valeka, again, that's another name we already knew. Freddie Benavidez, I didn't think he was going to stay. He is staying with the Cincinnati Reds as well, with the same role, bench coach.
I like that because if Terry gets thrown out, we have a guy who's ready to roll.
We have a manager.
We have
experience.
One of the best interim managers of all time in terms of vibes. He doesn't really win.
So I'm not surprised by any of these names, I would say. J.R. House was the one name I thought for sure wouldn't be back. But
Brad Mills worked with Francona in Cleveland for many years. He was the Astros manager, I believe, in the early 2010s. So some more experience there on the bench for the Reds. Look, I don't know, man. I wish I knew more of these names. I know Kirby's excited about some of them, talking about more. You'll get some more in-depth analysis on Chatterbox Reds. Wish I had more to give you, but the ones I do recognize are exciting. We're making changes where we need to make changes, I think, for the most part.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. It's not going to be a completely new look. We have some familiar faces there, but it's a new vibe. It's a new vibe in Cincinnati when you hire Terry Francona. So I'm sure under new leadership, these guys, the slate has been wiped clean from what they've done in the past. It's just going to be a new atmosphere in the clubhouse,
which is
in
good.
the dugout, which is a very good thing.
They should redesign the clubhouse and dugout and everything, too. Gut it.
Yeah.
Just completely new vibe.
Just make it a bar.
Well,
make it a bar, and you get TVs in there, and then you got a full-time bartender, and that's what it is. And actually, you can just put a screen up to block off the field because you don't need to focus on that. You can just have the bar,
and
they're just watching TV.
What happens for the baseball game?
No baseball game for you. But yeah, good for everybody. The one quote I did see yesterday was Terry Francona was asked about his trip to the Dominican to see Ellie, and he came out and said he was talking with Ellie De La Cruz and saying, I don't just want you to be an exciting baseball player. I want you to be the best baseball player in Major League Baseball. That's what I want you to be. I'm going to help you be that. So I think this guy's a leader. I think he's a proven winner. I think he's a champion. And to have that be instilled in our young guys like Ellie De La Cruz, Noelvi Marte, whoever the hell is going to make the roster on opening day, I'm very, very excited for this new age Reds. And this is why, like I was talking about this season, when we talked about the expectations and the disappointment, I didn't think David Bell deserved to be fired this season after what just happened. But in hindsight, looking at it right now, I am very excited that we get to have a new start. Because it does seem like last year was the end of something and this year is the beginning of something. We thought that was the case the year prior. We thought it was the end of something, and with Ellie De La Cruz, it was the beginning. But really, it was just a facade. And I think right now you're going to see a new attitude. I think you're going to see at-bats change. I think you're going to see base running change a little bit. Not too much, because I know people are like, stop stealing bases. You got to steal bases. That's who the Reds are. When you have elite speed everywhere, steal some bases. Just clean up the silly mistakes. And I do think Terry Francona is going to be able to do that.
That's what it's going to have to come down to. We sat up here the whole time and said coaches don't matter, managers don't matter in the David Bell conversation. So I'm not going to act like looking at this list, I think it's going to make some drastic change to how the Reds play this season. It's going to come down to the free agent signings and the progression of our young players. You can throw any name on this list of coaches, and if our players don't take a step and clean up the fundamentals and the front office doesn't go get some help in the outfield and pitching, then we're not going to win games. So you could have an all-star staff of coaches. It doesn't matter. I do think some of these changes have been great, and it'll send the Reds in the right direction, like Elliot said, with a change of scenery. Hopefully just, kind of give these guys a little nudge,
just a push
in the right direction. And I think Francona will absolutely clean up those fundamental issues that we talk about with the Reds so often. That's what you hire him for. I don't think you're necessarily looking at batting average bumps and stuff like that, but it's the routine ground balls, it's the base running mistakes, it's the fundamentals that a World Series champion Hall of Fame manager is brought in to change. And hopefully that's exactly the change he's going to make, and that's going to net this club just alone 5, 6, 7 wins.
And 100%.
And then everything else that builds off of that's another 10 wins or so. And then you're sitting at 85 and we're talking playoffs. So,
I think he's going to be the one to be able to beat the Brewers. The Reds have struggled against the Brewers for a long time now. I think he's the guy that's going to get us over that hump, because that's really the only other team that I'm scared of in this division. I think the Cubs are fine, had a down year, but the Reds can beat the Cubs. They proved that last year on a down year that they can take care of the Chicago Cubs. The Pirates, I will never be afraid of, no matter what they do, no matter how many wins they have. I don't care about the Pittsburgh Pirates. I never will. You can clip that. You can send it to the moon. The Pittsburgh Pirates are worthless. That's a worthless organization and a worthless franchise. Never be scared of them. The Cardinals, they're in full rebuild mode. They're selling everything and everyone that they can heading into this season. It's going to be a winnable division. It's going to be the window that we talk about in baseball. This is the window. I wish the TV deal wasn't a part of this window because we would have money to spend. But we'll see what happens there. We still don't know what's going to happen there. But it's going to make it. It's going to make an impact. Nick Martinez, by the way, I was talking about this yesterday with when the cameras were off. Nick Martinez still hasn't signed with the Reds,
right?
So we don't know. We don't. I mean, the report came out that he was expected to sign. At no point now in the past couple of days has there been any signs of, Nick Martinez is going to be a Red. That was just an expectation. So we'll see. Other teams have been offering him deals. The Reds have a lot of work to do with upgrading this roster in the coming weeks, coming months. They got to get to work here, and I'm sure they're behind the scenes. They're doing everything they can. But you started to see the names yesterday. Travis d'Arnaud signed with the Angels. Reds need a backup catcher. I don't know if you want to pay $12 million to d'Arnaud, but you do need a lot of positions. You need a lot of help coming into next season, and I'd like that ball to start to get rolling, especially if Nick Martinez, who expected to sign, isn't a Red.
Yeah, and I think it's going to come down. I see a lot of people in the chat, and obviously we've had the sentiment as well this offseason that Terry Francona is going to have it under control, and we have faith in what he's going to do with this team and build it, but he can only do so much as the manager. This pressure is fully on the shoulders of Brad Meader and Nick Kroll. They're the only ones that can get this team to the point where it needs to be this season, and hopefully the front office is willing to, and I guess ownership, the front office probably does want to spend. I've never said that they don't want to spend. I hope the ownership gives them the funds to do so, because it's going to come down to Nick Kroll and Brad Meader. Terry Francona can do the best managerial job anyone's ever seen. If they don't get outside pieces and spend money on this team, then the team's not good enough. It's pretty cut and dry. So it comes down to those two guys as well.
All right, this is Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410, Wing AM in Dayton. We'll get to some college football stuff, reaction to the playoff coming up around the corner. We'll close out our thoughts on Terry Francona, the staff, Nick Martinez. I do have a question about him. I'll throw it to you guys coming up on the other side. This is Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. We have a perfect show going so far, Ellie.
Casey's
45
cold,
minutes
man.
exact.
You got to see Casey right now.
If you saw me giggling
Casey,
over here
show
in the
us
corner,
Casey.
it's because this man was suiting up. He's in the tundra. He's in the tundra. Give me those hood buttons. Give me those hood buttons.
It is so cold over here.
Yeah, Casey was zipping that sucker up middle of that last segment. Hood went up. Now the button's getting buttoned. He's bundled up over there. It is cold in this Casey. It is cold in the studio.
It's cold in this Casey.
It's cold in this studio, and Casey is demonstrating such. It is cold. He might be overreacting a little bit, but my hands and feet are cold.
My feet are cold. I'm going to send this to the group chat. I took a picture of Casey looking like Darth Vader. It's a
Mouse
very
asked
funny
if
picture.
it's cold enough in the studio that you're going to be fixing your roof tomorrow.
Not quite. It's too cold to fix the roof now.
Yeah, it is too cold to fix the roof.
I think you fixed the roof one day when it was raining.
Well, if he gets sick, he has those PTO days to use. So
That's right. Yeah, no, that's the thing. That's the thing about Casey's contract here, and I don't really know how he worked it out. He has 52 weeks in the year. He has 50 weeks of PTO. It's honestly startling.
Casey says, "I don't play back-to-backs."
This is slander.
I don't play.
Casey, don't let him do
Joel
Casey,
Embiid of Chatterbox.
Casey, don't let him do this to you. Don't let him slander you. Don't let him slander that good name.
I mean, what can I say? I just gained the system, got a max contract, and now I can sit out one.
That's right. That's right. It's load management. Load management.
Love it. Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. I can't believe it's that cold back in the studio. That's why I'm not.
It's very cold.
I'm in my very warm studio.
Well,
here.
once you're here, you bring the fires of hell to warm up this studio. So now that you're not here, it's an ice
Chills
box.
it down.
You guys were talking Reds a little bit ago. You guys brought up too, obviously J.R. House. Obviously, I mean, we're kind of putting him. We think of him when we think of all the base running blunders, especially with how aggressive they were on the base paths. I'm still trying to be positive about that spin from last year where this team was one of the worst run-producing teams in baseball, and I've always just chalked it up to as many blunders as they made on the base paths of them trying to overcompensate for their inability to score runs by when they do get someone on base, doing everything in their power to advance that runner, just trying to capitalize on those opportunities. At least that's how I've been trying to convince myself that there's no way this team could be that silly on the base paths, right? But when we talk about Terry Francona and we talk about, the discipline that he possesses and brings and how he's going to kind of help this organization and help this team, we always associate that with how he's going to help the players. But I do think the trickle-down effect of having a guy like Terry Francona in that clubhouse is going to be on the coaching staff as well. I think J.R. House will be a much different third base coach when you consider who he's coaching under. So that's the positive spin I'd like to think that we could put on that. Here's the other thing to keep in mind. I know this is kind of random, but the other day a buddy of mine asked if I thought Urban Meyer was ever going to coach again. And I said, I don't know, I would like to think that he will, but if he ever does, I think the most important person at that university that he's coaching at is going to be the assistant coach, because can that person step in if health issues come about for Urban Meyer? And that's the same thing here with the Cincinnati Reds. We hope that we're never talking about the health of Terry Francona moving forward the way that so many people did during his final run with the Guardians. Who is it? Freddie Benavidez? Is it going to be Brad Mills? I mean, who is that guy? I think it's very important who that second guy up is, because if those health issues do return, who's going to be the guy that's going to lead the Reds through those murky waters if, unfortunately, those health issues come back?
It's a good question, and I don't know the answer to it.
I would assume Brad Mills if they're bringing him in, and that's basically the role he played in Cleveland.
Yeah, it would probably. It's not Freddie Benavidez.
It can't.
It's not Freddie Benavidez, and it's not going to be probably one of our guys. If it would be one of our guys, I'd honestly want it just to be Colin Cowgill, because I like him. I just like him. So that's not even a baseball take.
Does every fan base have one of their base coaches that they just like adore for no reason?
Yeah, I think so.
He's definitely Cincinnati.
He's just the
Everyone loves
He's just
him.
the headbutt guy. He headbutts all our guys. I like that. It's a friendly little thing.
That's the best thing Bally Sports ever did. That 15-minute clip on how they started the headbutts with Colin Cowgill, because now everyone just loves him.
Yeah, it's
the greatest contribution Bally Sports made.
Maybe Sam LeCure gets down there. Maybe our guy Sam LeCure comes down there and helps out.
Him and Giesenschlaw?
I wonder. That's actually him. And I don't even know how to say.
I hope.
What's going to happen to the pregame and everything show? Who's going to pay him?
I didn't even think about that.
I don't understand how all of it works now. I guess we're going to find out in the coming months. But man, it's going to be a big change for those who have watched the Reds on TV for a long time.
Whatever broadcast the Reds end up going with for the season, they need a pregame show.
They have to. I mean, but who's going to pay him? If it's. I mean, I don't know.
It's a great question.
Also, you're gonna have to.
I never thought about the ripple effects of that. To all the different.
Where are the games gonna be streamed at? Because they're not gonna be on cable anymore.
I still think the most likely option is what we've seen with. I think it's the Padres, where they have the MLB TV option for the team, just streamed through MLB's website.
Yeah, if that's the case, then I wouldn't be upset with it. I mean, they can. I get to watch every game for free, so. Whatever. I saw this too, guys, and we'll see what your guys' take is. What would be the most you would pay for a subscription to watch the Reds? This was a debate on Twitter. I think Trace started to get into it. Bryce Spalding started to tweet about it. Trace was saying like $40, and you get $40 a month. I'm not paying $40.
I wouldn't pay $40 a month.
I'm not paying $40 a month.
MLB TV is like what, $155 for the year?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's right about it.
That's
$150 for the year.
I'm talking $20 a month would be the max.
I'd agree with that.
$20 a month would be the max.
Do I think there are people out there that would pay whatever amount?
Sure.
Yeah. And
sure.
Obviously, there's a point where making it cost more money and cutting out the people that aren't willing to pay that, it still makes more sense based on how many people are subscribing. So I don't know where it'll be, but yeah, I certainly wouldn't pay more than $20 a month. And also, I honestly don't know if I'd pay $20 a month. I know how to use the internet.
That's the other thing.
The people that are going to buy these streams, if it's that expensive, and the people that are going to buy these streams are only people that are over 30. I mean, there's no one our age. All due respect, Kenner. There's no one Elliot and I's age that's buying those streams, because we'll just use Stream East and Crack Streams and all the other nonsense on Google that we can find them for free. So. I mean, I already think there's been a massive decrease in the amount of subscriber-based viewing just because of that thing. I mean, the population or popularity of Stream East and all the other things along those lines. I mean, UFC pay-per-views have gone down drastically since they raised the prices because people are doing the illegal streams. So I think it'd be the same thing with the MLB, and that's a very fine line you have to walk.
Us geriatrics, we use that easy. We have that easy TV. I don't know if that, if you youngins are familiar with all easy TV. I know some people that use that. I know some people. As far as that goes, I don't know what the price. I don't know what the price point would be. Because when you think about what you already pay for, or what I pay, for Netflix and for Peacock and for Paramount and all those other networks that you don't think you need until there's a show you really want to watch, and you just say, fine, I'll do the free trial, and then the next thing you know, your account's just being billed for the remainder of the year without you even realizing it. I think if you just did $150 for the season, I don't even think you break it down by season or by month. I think if the Reds just came out and said, hey, it's $149 for the full season, I don't think that scares people away. I don't like the $20 a month, because then you're comparing that to Netflix, you're comparing it to Peacock and some of the others. Then it just seems higher. They come out and say it's $150 for the season. I would do it in a heartbeat. But again, I don't speak for everybody. I'm curious your guys' thoughts on that.
I do it for $150. Again, $20 a month. I'm too dumb. Casey, what's 20 times 12?
240.
It would be 220, 240.
They don't
It'd be
play
240.
all year.
No, but it would be I'd forget to unsubscribe. So 240.
That's that Toledo math, dude, right?
Yeah, I got there. I got there eventually. But my thing is, if you're going to charge more than what it is to do MLB TV, then it's worthless to me. $40 a month would be absurd. I would say 10 to 15 is the max I'd probably pay. $20 you could convince me. But it's what would you pay, Kenner? You paying $40 a month?
I see some people in the chat saying they pay well over 200.
You'd pay well over 200?
I see people in the chat saying that.
Keep in mind, this is for a time in Reds history where you have Terry Francona and Elly De La Cruz, and you have a young, exciting team. But I'm here to tell you, I don't know if this happens 2 years ago, heading into a season where the Reds were expected to lose 100 games. I don't think I even pay 150. I think that's the dangerous part of this stuff, is that at that point, and maybe I do like it, maybe at this point, if a lot of that money that comes in is based on the interest in your team, maybe that does put the pressure on the front office to have to put a good product out there, right? Like, you can't constantly be heading into these rebuilds to where you lose interest of your fans. And if a lot of the money is dependent on subscriptions and a paywall base, you're going to lose that based on the interest in the team.
Yeah.
I do find it interesting that you have Elly De La Cruz, Terry Francona. This is an interesting, fun team right now. I think you're going to get a lot of people that are willing to pay whatever they need to. But what about those bad years? What about those years where what happens that season once we realize the Reds can't afford Elly? You know, when Terry Francona hangs it up after 3 years and this team's not as interesting, what happens at that point? That would be the concern I would have going out that far into swimming those waters if I'm the Reds.
Absolutely. I think baseball's maybe the most volatile sport in terms of viewership based on team performance. I think everyone, or at least for the most part, the vast majority of baseball fans are pretty one-team oriented. And you watch your team play because they play damn near every night, and then you don't really watch much else. I think if it's hard to watch the Reds, baseball in Cincinnati would start to die. You have to be able to watch these games on TV. You have to be able to get access to them. I see some people in the chat, mostly Evan, saying, screw the fans, do what's best for the organization to help the money. You gotta let fans watch games. That's what sports is about. I do think an interesting part of this conversation, and I know what my answer is, I'd be interested to say what you would say. You said you pay about $20 a month for Red streams. Yeah. What's the number you would pay for Sunday Ticket?
I'd pay a lot more.
That's exactly what I was saying. But I think that's a good example when we're talking about this. We see a lot of people that bring up the price and stuff, and they're comparing it to, well, Sunday Ticket's this much, and you watch, everyone pays for that. People are way more interested in the rest of the NFL than they are in the rest of the MLB. I think that is a massive bad comparison in the conversations about this. You have to be talking about watching one team.
I watch every primetime game.
Right.
Like, I watch every Thursday night football game. I watch every Monday night football game, and I watch every Sunday night football game. Every single one. Unless I'm working or have something else to do, I will be watching all of those games. MLB, I could care less who Sunday Night Baseball is. Could care less. In spoiler, it's either the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Red Sox, or the Astros. That's it. That's who plays on Sunday Night Baseball. Occasionally the Chicago Cubs. Outside of that, I'm completely uninterested in those storylines. I'm uninterested in all of it. I'm only interested in the Cincinnati Reds. That's it. So if I can't watch those games, then Major League Baseball to me is gone.
Well, here's the deal, too, and that kind of came to me in mid-conversation thinking about this. As a fan, and thinking about how the Reds do business, I kind of want the paywall structure to be there. I kind of want the Reds' ability to make money based off how many people subscribe to watch their games. And the reason I say that is kind of the point I made earlier. They're put in a situation where they have to put a product out on the field. I think one of the reasons that baseball is so bad and a lot of sports are so a lot of problems with sports is that a lot of these teams, they're going to get a big influx of money whether they have a good team or not. Back in the day, before those big TV deals really started, obviously funding a lot of these teams to keep going, it was you had to put a product out on the field to get people to come to the ballpark to obviously buy, and go to the concession stands, buy apparel, buy tickets. That's how you used to make all your money. And you had to have a good product on the field to get people to come watch your team. Then the TV deals come in. The Reds are going to get their $200 million. What's the incentive to go spend money to put a product on the field to get people to watch? You already got your money. You get your money up front. But if the Reds are put in a position where, man, we have to put a product on the field to increase our viewership, I think that's a good thing for sports that incentivizes them to spend and make sure that, hey, we're not going to go 4 or 5 years on a rebuild that's going to just totally alienate a fan base. I don't think that's going to be the direction they go, but I'm pulling for that because that forces them to have to put a product out on the field.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. It's a lot of questions. If I were the Reds, I'd agree with you, Kinner. I think having that revenue, however big or small it is, just to help the team out. Like if you're talking, like you know how last year I always joke about there should be a Venmo. There should be a Venmo for the Reds. We're just going to Venmo everybody Venmos $5, and they can use that for a player that we want.
See, I want the crowdfunding to be fun. How much money would the Yankees raise?
I mean, they
like you wouldn't like only we get it.
Only the Reds. That'd be fair. I do think that I worry about how much money. I know you just laid out the stats there, Kinner. But I want the Reds to have the ability to spend money, and whether or not we think that they have that money in years past, I know, yada, yada, yada. I know that this year we're going to need some sort of revenue to get like 4 players. I want 4 players. If we get 4 players, that's all I want. I want 4 really good, bona fide starters that make a difference.
Yeah, and the Reds have to probably look at this season as an investment too. You're going to have to spend money to make money. Yep. Think about if you go all in and bring in, and I'm not asking for the superstar players, but you go bring in and add depth and exciting players. And the Reds are an exciting team, and they're competing for the NL Central. And that ballpark is full, and I'm not talking about 40,000 every single night, but if we're talking at least 30,000 for the majority of their home games, think of the money you're going to make back on if you don't, and you're at your typical 20 to 22,000 a night. Like I just feel like you get what you pay for. And if you put a good product out there, you're going to fill up that ballpark way more. You're going to get a lot more money coming in, interest in the product, all the apparel sales. I just think that this has to be an investment year for the Reds. They can't just sit back and use the TV deal as an excuse. That's probably what they will do, but I'm hoping that they look at it as an investment year. The money that we'll get back by investing into the team, but we know that's not how baseball works.
The issue though, Kinner, is, and this is not in defense of the Castellini family, you should spend money to try to win when you're the owner of a ball club, regardless. That's your job. Saying that, the team 2 years ago, when all the excitement came in, was fighting for the final playoff spot. They were in control. They were in possession of the final wild card spot in September.
Yes.
And nobody showed up. Nobody was going to the games. That was a winning baseball team, and nobody still was going to the games. So now you have to think about how much money are you willing to spend, how much money are you willing to lose if still nobody shows up to these games. And that's a fact. We went as a bit. I think it was in September. Trace took this whole office to a Reds game in September during a playoff chase. There was like 2,000 people there, 4,000 people there. That's the reality of the situation. And I know Kirby always puts the stats near. Well, the Reds, it's not really close to everybody. A lot of fans are from an hour and a half away, and I understand all of that. It's just at the end of the day, it's tough to just be like, we had to bring more fans into the ballpark when the reality of the situation is it's just never going to happen. That ballpark's never going to be filled on a Tuesday night. It's just not. It's like I look at the San Diego Padres, I look at the Chicago Cubs. They sell out everything, and it's electric atmosphere. It's awesome. The Reds, any weeknight game, the weekend games, the Reds do great. To their credit, the weekend games for the Cincinnati Reds have grown the past several years, and that's almost every weekend game, it feels like, is near a sellout. The weeknight games are the money makers, and you don't make any money on those nights.
Yeah, Karen Forgas, we've had her on the show before. She's like their chief communications director or whatever for the Reds. We love having her on. She does a good job. But she said last year, to your point, Elliot, that how they used to do the bobblehead promotions. They would always do those for the Saturday games or the Sunday games. And she's like, that's not really where they need help with attendance. That's why if you notice this past year, they started kind of sprinkling in those giveaways throughout the week to kind of help with that midweek attendance number to bump that, as opposed to, hey, we already going to have a lot of fans here on a Saturday, so why use that promotion then? So there's ways around it. But all right, good stuff again. By the way, last question here on the Reds, then we'll go over to NFL college. But the Nick Martinez thing, I caught when that news was announced that there were reports that Nick Martinez was going to accept. Obviously, the number. Trace wasn't happy about it. I didn't get to keep tuning in. Did Trace ever go into why he wasn't happy about it? Is this a bad thing for the Reds? Did he call their bluff if that's the case? Like, did the Reds actually want to give him $21.5 million? What do you think's going on here? Because I do believe those reports of people say, hey, the Reds wanted to counteroffer just to show good faith to the Reds fans that, hey, look, we're trying to be aggressive.
but it probably backfired when he accepted the offer or reports came out that that's the case. Where are you with why he hasn't officially signed that number yet?
He's a Scott Boras client, and somebody else is offering more money. That's the reality of the situation. There's other offers coming in, and he's weighing all of his options. I think the Reds wanted him back. He's a utility guy. You get what you get. You're basically paying $21 million for a guy to play two positions. He's a starting pitcher and he's a reliever at will. Whenever you want that to happen, that's what he is. I think the Reds wanted him. I just don't know if it's going to happen now. There's been no reports that are saying that he's coming back. It's just the report that says he was expected to. Well, now Scott Boras has said there's other teams coming in, and we'll see what happens there. I think it would be a good signing. I'm not like Reed made the point yesterday, and he wasn't on the show, but he was in the office. We were talking about it. Reed made the point, do you want to play or do you want to pay this guy $21 million to maybe just be a reliever? Because that's a possibility. If the Reds have five starting pitchers that are healthy next season, he will not start. Are you paying $21 million for that? And the answer is no. It's a unanimous no. You're paying $21 million for the chance that somebody does go down and he has to start a significant amount of games. That's what that $21 million is for. He can do both. But it's almost like an insurance policy, right? You don't know if you're going to need him in that. So do you want to pay him $21 million? I've gone back and forth on this. I think if you're going to pay him $21 million, as long as the spending continues this offseason, yeah, I'm more than happy with Nick Martinez coming back. But if that would be the only move, if $21 million to Nick Martinez hurts the chances of the Reds bringing in an outfielder, then no, I don't want Nick Martinez. I think the Reds need more help hitting-wise than they do pitching-wise at this very moment.
I think exactly what you said, Kenner. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go. You're good. My bad.
Exactly what you said is what took place. I think Nick Martinez called the Reds bluff. I don't think anyone in that Reds building wants to pay Nick Martinez $21 million, and I certainly wouldn't want to either. I think it would be a fine signing. I think it would be okay, but you're paying $21 million to a reliever, and you're probably going to force your hand to have to start to make that contract make sense. I personally would not have been thrilled with him signing this. I think it's relatively good news for the Reds that he's dragging his feet here. I know a lot of people are on both sides of this one. I don't know that one's necessarily right and the other one's wrong, but I just think for a guy that's not even a locked-in starter, $21 million is astronomical for a franchise that does not spend money.
Yeah.
That's a big chunk of the amount that I would be expecting them to spend this offseason.
Well, and Elliot, you actually brought up a point that kind of swayed me a bit because I was kind of more on Jake's side regarding that. Like, for a team that is going to be limited on spending money to begin with, to go all in on $20 million for one player, it just like $20 million. If the Yankees sign him to that, that's nothing to them. It's nothing to the Dodgers. It's nothing to a lot of teams out there. But $20 million for one player, a potential reliever at that. But the one thing you brought up too, it's the fact that he has the ability to start in a pinch. If there is a stretch where the Reds are banged up in the rotation, and we saw it last year. In fact, that's where he had the opportunity to shine. With the fact that we know he could be a dominant reliever, but also a dominant starter at the same time, I guess that value right there, you can use him anywhere. Like Nick Lodolo, we think he could be a dominant starter, but he just can't stay healthy. We don't know if they move him to the bullpen, if he could stay healthy long-term to be a dominant reliever at that point. You know what you get with Nick Martinez. Plus, it's a little bit of a luxury to be able to have the ability to give him $20 million because you're not paying any of your pitchers. You're paying about, $6 or $8 million a year for Hunter Green, and we knew that was going to be either a steal for a Cy Young caliber pitcher, which it looks like they have, or they were going to be paying a good chunk of money to a good, solid pitcher in Hunter Green. I think they have the luxury of being able to do it from a pitching perspective just because they're not paying any of their other pitchers at this point. I don't know. I'll be curious. I don't think the fact that he hasn't signed it, I don't think he's going to sign it now. I'd be surprised to see what changes if it does.
I'm not going to be mad either way. It's just I want the Reds to spend. I want the Reds to try with Terry Francona. I firmly believe Bryce Spalding said it. I believe it. I think Jacob believes it. You don't bring Terry Francona here if you're not willing to spend money, if you're not willing to try. And I think the Reds are committed to trying. I think Nick Krall, I think you mentioned it earlier, Kenner. Nick Krall is, the seat's starting to warm up. It's not like we're firing Nick Krall, but it's like, let's go, guys. So we'll see what happens. I'm scared with the TV deal that we're not going to have money. But if we're able to spend money, then I like the Reds' chances coming into next season.
To be fair, they've had a TV deal in recent years, and they still acted like they didn't have money. So
that's fair. That's a fair point.
Tomato.
It's a fair point.
All right. Off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner, Casey McCollister in the producer chair. Is he still parked up? Is he thawed out?
No, his hood's down.
Yeah, I did take the hood down.
He's coming back a little bit.
It's just I'm right by these windows, and the outside it just comes right right here.
The outside's coming inside?
Yeah. It's just right in here, and it's right here.
Then would it then just be the inside? If the outside comes inside, it's no longer outside.
It's fair. It's a fair point.
It's cold in Casey.
It is cold in Casey.
It's just very cold. Very cold.
Oh my goodness! I hope you thaw out, Casey. I hope you do okay. All right, we'll step away. You don't like the outside coming in? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
The cold never bothered me anyway.
All right, Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. College football playoff rankings came out last night. Anything pop off the page to you? We'll talk about that when we come back. A little buy or sell to close out the radio portion of the show as well. More Off the Bench next. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissett with you here. Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Jacob, the college football playoff rankings came out last night. We
sure did.
Yesterday's show. We said yesterday that there probably wasn't going to be a shakeup, that all 12 teams that were in the playoff rankings in the top last week would be there this week. It ended up not being the case.
Not the case.
Shakeup. Yeah. So thoughts on that? Boise out, I guess. They're coming in at 13. I mean, and Georgia at 12. Ole Miss pops in. What was your takeaway when those rankings came out from last night?
Boise at 13, but important to remember that they are still in the playoff. They are still the 12 seed at 8-1. Georgia, the first team out of the playoff, even though they are ranked 12. So we are starting to play those mental gymnastics here of seedings versus ranking. Remember that the ranking does not technically matter, as we see again with number 9 Miami having the 4 seed and getting the bye.
Yep.
Honestly, I know a lot of people are shocked that Georgia fell out, but I have a much bigger gripe, and it's kind of 3 teams, and Georgia's in the mix. But Alabama, Ole Miss, and Georgia being below Miami is absolutely preposterous to me. I think all 3 of those teams are head and shoulders over Miami at this point. We've seen Miami escape multiple games against lesser opponents, and then they finally fall this past weekend. I thought Miami should have been below all 3 of those teams. I know that wouldn't change anything along the seeding line, but I firmly believe Miami's in that 9 seed just so that the committee can justify them as the 4 seed and make everything look a little prettier. I think without the seedings being tied to top-ranked conference teams, we would see Miami below Alabama, Ole Miss, and Georgia. All 3 of those teams have been better than Miami this year for the entirety of the year, and we still see Miami ranked ahead of them. I don't get it. I know it wouldn't change anything for the seeding, but that was something that really had me upset last night. And then BYU, I've been banging the table to move BYU up. They listened to me, but man, 6 feels a little high. But yet again, I feel like that's to justify that 3 seed and get the bye there in the first round. It's interesting for sure. We'll see how it progresses the rest of the way. Those first round matchups look great. Very enticing to watch.
Casey, I sent you I just sent it to you. Oh, look at you. Look at you. That's why you're the MVP right there. So here's the bracket, the 12-team college football playoff bracket. And Jake, when this stuff comes out, do you look at the rankings right away, or do you just look at the bracket? For me, I don't care about the rankings. I just look at the bracket right away. What do you look at first right away? Is it the rankings or the bracket?
For this one, I was interested in the rankings just because I wanted to see how those SEC teams that are all bunched up with 2 losses were treated together. And then it seemed like it was basically as expected, except for, like I said, Miami being ranked ahead of all 3 of them. With the seeding at this point, I don't know. I don't know what to say about the seeding at this point. It's all going to come down to the conference championships, and since those haven't been played yet, I have really no interest in looking at those buys. I mean, Miami has the 4 seed as the 9th-ranked team. They're not even number 1 in the ACC right now. That's SMU. So what am I looking at with those buys? You're projecting things that currently aren't true and might never come true. So I thought they were going to handle these buys and projected conference champions by what they were listed as currently in the standings. That's not the case. They're strictly ranking these teams, which I do prefer. I like the committee showing us what they think instead of just what we think that they should do, which is much more advantageous for us as we progress through and can start to predict and see how they're going to react with different outcomes as we go down the line. But I was really surprised with those rankings last night. Not the turn that I thought they were going to make whatsoever.
By the way,
put that.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, go. Right. No, you're good.
I was just gonna say, like, if SMU were to win the ACC, what happens? Nothing. They don't just there would be no ACC team.
No, they'd get the bye.
So SMU would.
Well, the top 4 conference champions get a bye.
Okay.
Whether SMU's ranked ahead of BYU or not, or Boise State or not, I don't know at this point.
Okay.
The top 4 conference champions get a bye. The ACC champion is automatically in the playoff.
Okay.
So they would be in the playoff, but they wouldn't necessarily get the bye. I would have a tough time imagining SMU beating either Clemson or Miami in the ACC championship and not being ranked ahead of Boise State.
Man, that would be crazy.
The one I would have circled for that fall is, I know they're up to 6 at this point, but BYU has looked vulnerable lately. And if there is not an undefeated Big 12 champion, I pretty firmly believe Boise State's going to get that bye.
Wow.
If Boise gets the okay, I mean, yeah, all right.
Because what I'm saying there is, if it's not an undefeated BYU, it's probably Colorado.
Okay.
And with 2 losses, Colorado is not a top 4 seed, and I don't think it's enough. A win over BYU is enough to jump them over Boise State, unless that's what the committee's setting up here, putting BYU as the 6, so that if Colorado handles them in the Big 12 championship, an undefeated BYU in the Big 12 championship, they can jump them above Boise State and give those power conferences the byes. That's something that I'm certainly paying attention to here, because with BYU at 6, that screams to me, if Indiana loses, BYU's jumping to 5. And if you beat a top 5 team in your conference champion, you get the bye. I think it's really, really interesting that I think the committee's looking ahead here and setting up things to help them out down the line.
I saw a clip yesterday where it was I forget who it was, but they were on Pat McAfee, and they would yes, it was that a 3-loss SEC team, they'd have a hard time keeping them out.
No, she said that she has a hard time eliminating them.
Okay.
Which is a drastic difference.
Okay.
It would take chaos, but I don't think Georgia losing this weekend is out of it.
No.
But it would certainly
That's going to piss people off, though. And that's going to be where people get – that's where the Dana Cannells – I know we talked about that yesterday.
Yeah.
We don't need to go back in. But that's where the Dana Cannells and the non-elitists of the world, when it comes to college football, they get upset. Even though we don't have to like it, but if you just use common sense, there's a reason that some of these elite teams have more losses than some of the good undefeated teams. And it's just as simple as look at who they played. Look who they run into.
Yeah.
Look at what they do to challenge themselves in the non-conference when they don't have to. That's what I give kudos to the SEC for. People rip them because they play a bunch of nobodies in the second to last week of the season. But to be fair, there's a lot more Big Ten teams that shy away from big opponents in the non-con than SEC teams. Every year the SEC, and they don't have to. I've said before, I'd be that pain in the butt AD that would not play anybody in the non-con, especially now when Ohio State has to play Michigan and Oregon and Penn State and USC if they ever get their act right. In the SEC, if you're Alabama, you got the Georgias and the Texas and the Oklahomas of the world now on top of the powers that are already competitive in the SEC with LSU and Ole Miss and others. So I don't have a problem with the 3-loss SEC teams or a 3-loss Big Ten team, if there is one, being in the mix. But I know it's going to create a lot of chaos if that's the case.
I think the only 3-loss team that can get in is Georgia. I think if Alabama loses the third game, they're out. If Ole Miss loses the third game, they're out. Looking at the standings right now, Georgia's ranked 12th at 7-2. If Georgia loses this week to Tennessee, you're not putting them below 6-3 Louisville. They'd still be the top-ranked 3-loss team, correct?
They'd have to be.
They'd have to be. So they'd be ranked 17 or 18.
Yeah.
And you don't think Georgia can climb 6 spots in the next couple of weeks with all these teams in the top playing each other? They certainly could.
The only way it would be ever be an issue is if the 3-loss Georgia team was the reason, an 11-0 team or something like that, 10-0 team.
Which I would be hard pressed to find a way that would happen, because the only 3 undefeated teams right now that are in the mix are BYU, Indiana, and Oregon. Indiana and Oregon will solve themselves, because if they're both undefeated through the regular season, they'd play each other in the conference championship, and one would have a loss. Both would still be in the playoff. And if BYU goes undefeated, they win the conference, they automatically get the bye. If they don't go undefeated, then they obviously have a loss, and we can have that conversation. I don't think a 3-loss team would get in over a 1-loss team.
What about a 1-loss Indiana team that loses to Ohio State?
I think that depends on the score.
Okay.
It's not what you say, it's how you say it. It's not how you lose. It's not that you lose, it's how you lose.
Indiana against Ohio State is not necessarily playing for in or out. But I do think the committee will punish Indiana if they get blown out in their only big-time game of the season and have them go on the road in the first round.
But my argument,
if that game's close, Indiana will play at home in the first round.
My argument against that would be Notre Dame is going to have one loss this year, maybe. And if their one loss is NIU at home, I think that loss is significantly worse than any million-point deficit that Indiana could suffer at Ohio State.
What matters more, losses or wins?
I mean, wins
matter. Indiana has no wins, and Notre Dame has one of the best wins in the country week 1 going to A&M.
That's fair.
And they beat Louisville, who's ranked, and they beat Navy, and they play Army. Like, Notre Dame's schedule has given them the ability to claw out of that loss. Indiana's issue is that they don't play a soul outside of Ohio State, which is no fault of their own.
Yeah.
It's just how the Big 10 schedule shook out this year, and that's a big-time issue that these players aren't playing good teams, or these good teams aren't playing each other in the regular season, which leads us to all these questions. But I think Indiana is safe in terms of playoffs if they go 11-1. I don't even care if they lose by 40 to Ohio State. I just think if they get blown out, they'll be punished with a road game instead of a home game.
That's fair.
Keep in mind with Indiana, too, I know they've played nobody, but to their credit, I wouldn't be as high on Indiana if they were beating a bunch of bad teams by 7 to 10 points, just narrowly escaping games. You know what I mean? Like they're playing nobodies, and to their credit, they're making them look like nobodies. And I think that matters. I think that the way they've dominated opponents matters. I think that's why Notre Dame has shot up the interest level boards over the last couple of weeks. They've dropped 50 in back-to-back games. I think that's gotten people's attention that, they're not just winning, they're dominating their opponents. Jake, is Notre Dame safe even with another loss? If they lose to USC in the last week, they have to win out to get in your opinion?
I don't know that they have to win out to get in. I think they have to win out to be safe. If they go 11-1, they're a lock. If they don't go 11-1, then you got to root for some assistance around the country, I think. Because I think if you're 10-2 with the losses that Notre Dame would then have, I mean, unless it's Army, because Army would be ranked top 20 top 15 if they beat Notre Dame. So unless it's Army, you're losing to a pretty bad team to go 10-2. And I'd have a tough time putting a 10-2 Notre Dame with a loss to Northern Illinois over a 10-2 Alabama, Ole Miss, Georgia, over one loss Boise State, SMU. I know they beat A&M, so they'd have to be above there. That put them at 15 or 16.
Yeah.
That's not giving them a chance to make the playoff, and I don't think that without the conference championship game, they have a fighting chance at 10-2. I think that they're out with another loss, but I would be shocked if Notre Dame lost another game. Riley Leonard's coming into his own. That offense looks legit, and the defense is playing really well. So I think Notre Dame's going to be set for a playoff berth.
Last thing on the way out, Casey, pop up the bracket one more time. Not the rankings, but the bracket. I tell you what. My favorite thing, and I said it yesterday, my favorite thing about this is as much as I don't like how much it kind of watered down the regular season, as much as I don't like some of the, maybe the ways that they're going about putting some of these teams, within the bracket, these matchups, I mean, Boise at Ohio State we talked about, but imagine Notre Dame going to Tennessee. That's an electric playoff game. Ole Miss at Penn State, if that's a night game, a whiteout, we talked about it. Any game at Penn State at night, hopefully a playoff game. Big noon kickoff. But how about the Crimson Tide? How about Alabama? Can you imagine if this was the final bracket, the final, playoff release? Can you imagine Alabama having to go on the road to play at Indiana? Alabama would never be caught dead playing at Indiana in the regular season, and their backs would be against the wall. The Crimson Tide would have to go to Indiana to play if this was the final one. Jacob, that's my favorite part about this is that potential scenario right there.
Oh, you bet your bippy I'd be in Bloomington giving Luke Brenneman a piece of my mind. That'd be a great time. That'd be a great time. Just looking at that bracket there, I hope the schedule works out and I have 2.5 hours, because if it works out and that's the setup, I would go to Boise State, Ohio State, and then drive to Bloomington and watch Alabama play Indiana. That would be an incredible day. Hopefully both my teams get in the first round. That'd be fun if Alabama can work their way up here, get geographically advantageous for me personally. That's all that matters. Personal gain.
But first of all, again, fantastic match. But Alabama at Indiana, it would look so weird. Like if Texas had to go to Indiana, like any of those just big brand schools, like Ole Miss going to Indiana, it would still be weird, but it wouldn't look as. But Texas at Indiana, Alabama. like, my goodness. And if Ohio State had to go to Indiana, let's be clear, it would probably be the first Ohio State-Indiana football game where Hoosier fans were actually there. So that would be kind of unique.
I don't know how many would be there.
Ohio
State would fill that stadium up.
I wonder how teams are going to navigate that selling tickets for those
It's going
games.
to be the single greatest thing that's ever happened to any sport, playing these first-round games at the stadiums. I firmly believe that. It's going to be unbelievable atmospheres. I've said it time and time again every time we get to talking about the 12-team playoff. We play these phenomenal games at meccas to the sport, just monuments to the sport that we all love, all season long for 12 weeks, and then we play the championship rounds in a warehouse in Houston, Texas. It makes no sense, and we're finally bringing back a little bit of that to the postseason. Absolutely beautiful. I can't wait for these first-round games. And I'm glad that at least it's looking like it's shaping up now that the teams that are getting these home games have massive home field advantages. I mean, we're looking at a scenario here where we could have Miami playing in the first round, and would that be fine and dandy? Yeah, that'd be okay, but that'd be a waste of a home playoff game. No one goes to those games in Hard Rock. Miami's been ranked in the top 5 all year long, and they haven't had a lower bowl full.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see, Ohio State, Neyland, and Knoxville, Penn State, Indiana, who's had a great atmosphere all year long. This is going to be great in the first round, and I'm going to really enjoy watching it.
Yeah. Reed had a funny message in the chat.
Yeah, I said 12-team playoffs terrible for the sport, and I couldn't agree more. That's the conversation we've had the entire time with David Shaw and I in the chat. That's what who was it? Someone, Harrow says, I can't believe Jacob's having 2 conversations at once. Yeah, that's what's happening. I'm talking to David Shaw about how upsetting it is that these 2- and 3-loss teams still have a chance to win a championship. I hate it. I think it's absolutely disgusting and it's terrible. But if this is the format that I'm presented with, I'm not going to stop watching college football. I'll find the bright spots.
That's right.
What up, Shaw? How are you? I didn't realize you guys.
He's always in here.
I didn't realize you guys were pen pals.
Oh yeah. He joins me on the Bengals streams quite a bit. Makes them fun.
All right, more Off the Bench as we close out the radio side. When we come back, Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. All right, we only have a little time left to close out the show today. We'll probably move buy or sell back to tomorrow's show.
We do have breaking news.
Ooh, what we got?
I lost my most recent paycheck because Monopoly has just dropped a LeBron edition of the classic game.
Yeah?
I'm ordering that sucker right now. Gold shoes, trophies, a little Akron map, a ball, a crown. My king got his own board game. Can't wait to play that.
There we go.
That's the move for the weekend. I know this isn't dialed in, but what's the move? I'll be playing LeBron Monopoly, drinking my LeBron Hennessy, watching LeBron and his son play for the Lakers.
LeBron's son no longer plays for the Lakers.
Yeah, he's on G League.
You guys ever see that Adam Sandler movie, Big Daddy or whatever? Have you guys seen that? Where he has to give the kid back who he was pretending to be the kid's father, and he had to give him back to Children's Services, and he has to say goodbye, and it's like a tearful, sad scene. And so they made the meme where Adam Sandler's LeBron and Bronny's the kid, and he's having to send him back to Children's Services. It's the saddest scene ever, but I thought it was hilarious. But if you guys haven't seen the movie or the clip, then it doesn't matter. But I thought it was absolutely hilarious when it's all said and done. But there you go. Hey, quick question. So we're talking about those, like Alabama potentially having to play at Indiana, this, that, and the other. I hate the bowl game structure. I hate that they have to play the bowl games on the neutral sites. I hate it. I literally do. You've made this much change in the sport. You've disrupted it this much. You've already made bowl games not matter anyways. And I know the bowl games are associated with dollars that are paid for the sport to make money off of it. But man, I want to see the home team format the whole way through. I want to see teams host the whole way through. You could have a championship, national championship on a neutral site. That's fine. But I hate that it's just the first round. The best teams in the college football playoff are going to win the conference more times than not, and they're always going to get that first round bye, which is great. One less game to have to play and win to get to a national championship. But at the same time, you're going to punish the best teams' fan bases by not getting to see their team play a home game in the playoff. I would love to see get rid of the bowl game format the whole way through. Just have the national championship be at a neutral site and take advantage of what would just be amazing home field advantages and atmospheres the whole way through.
It would
You
certainly
imagine
help.
if the Bearcats guys, like if the Bearcats ever got
Oh, yeah.
a chance, Elliot, like you're a big diehard Bearcat fan. Imagine if the Bearcats ever got a chance to host a playoff game, how wild that would be.
It would be insane. It would be insane. Nip at night. They took that away from us this year. That's okay. We'll get it back. Anyway, I will say this. That fixes, if they did that, that would fix your 3-loss teams. Blah, blah, blah. The 3-loss team wouldn't have any home games, and then they'd have to go on the road. That means being undefeated still matters a ton. It matters a ton now because you still have the home field advantage. But now you get it throughout the entirety of the postseason. So being the BCS champion would still give you that great benefit. So games still would matter. Obviously, if you lose 3 teams, if you lose 3 games and you're an SEC school, maybe you still get in. But it's a tough road ahead. I'd love it. I don't think they would do it just because I don't know how the money situation would work in that. I mean, if you host 3 home playoff games, do you get to keep all that revenue? I don't understand
you
how.
get a lot of revenue. I mean, these teams playing in the first round are gonna make a lot of money.
I don't understand how the money splitting thing would work, but you figure that out, it would be absolutely electric. It would be absolutely fantastic.
I know I'm in a minority with you two, but I wouldn't want to get rid of the New Year's Six bowl games. I think they mean too much. Playing in a Rose Bowl, playing in a Sugar Bowl, all that stuff. I think they mean too much. I like having them. You can move them to the Final Four and just rotate them like you used to in the 4-team playoff, and do a second round home as well, so those bye teams get a home playoff game. I'd be fine with that, but I think the Final Four and the championship should be bowl games. I would personally have the championship at the Rose Bowl every single year.
I agree with that. I would love that. I mean, if that's the compromise, but again, but it's like where these cities just bid. I mean, there's a reason that the Browns are trying to put up that gigantic dome 30 minutes from downtown. There's a reason. I mean, like the Vikings and everyone else, all these behemoth stadiums that they're putting up, they're not putting it up to take care of their home teams. They're putting it up so that they can host all these concerts and Final Fours and this, that, and the other, and including these college football playoffs. So, yeah, again, I threw that out there knowing that would never happen. But, man, we're going to get at least a taste of it with these first-round matchups, and to get a chance to see Indiana potentially host a home game to see Alabama there. That would be wild. That'd be wild. Let me ask you guys this, because you guys love my NFL draft take.
Your NFL draft take's my favorite. I think I lose sleep over that take. When I lay my head down at bed, if I don't have the TV on, I just start thinking about how Kenner wants to disband the NFL draft, and I'm up till 3 a.m.
Do you realize that the Bengals, though, would benefit this year from my draft
Kenner,
take?
I understand.
But this
that.
year, hold up. But this year, look at these teams that are in flux. You're in the between. You're like, man, I actually kind of don't want the Bengals to keep trying to compete for that 7 seed and then get knocked out in the first round and then get a worse draft pick. This is the best of both worlds. You compete for that 7 seed. And you get one of the top draft picks. It's a win-win.
And the Titans are the worst team in the league for 15 years.
Spend money, get better players in the offseason. Now you're more competitive. Now you move on up like the Jeffersons, dude. I don't know. I don't mean to die on that hill, but here we are. No, the similar take here for the college football conversation. This will never happen. The NFL makes way too much money off the Super Bowl locations and where they bid on it too, but I absolutely despise the fact that there's a host site for the Super Bowl. It'll never change. I get that, and I'm probably going to die on this hill as well. But I just believe you have a team that kicks ass all season, gets to the Super Bowl, and your fans get kicked to the curb because it turns into, again, just it's a big collection of just nothing but the extremely rich people that can afford these Super Bowl tickets. And then your home fans really have nothing to do with it. I don't like it. I wish that there wasn't host sites for the Super Bowl. Like when the Bengals made it that year, I don't think that they would have hosted. They technically would have played it. Actually, that would have been the exact same scenario. That wouldn't have changed because the Rams hosted it that year. But yeah, but then again, you guys would get tired of it being in Kansas City for the last couple of years too. So I don't know. I'm in the minority on that too, I'm sure. But
I would love outside Super Bowls. I want cold snow Super Bowls. That's what I would want, but I'm never going to get that. So no point of asking for it.
They played it in MetLife not too long ago.
Yeah, they did.
So I do think, are we getting closer to AFC, NFC championship games potentially getting to the point where those are being bid on? There was talks of that during COVID. Remember during COVID there was talks of that.
Yet.
I think that's more likely than my take. I think that's
Super Bowl never changed because you can't sell tickets all year long if you don't know where it's being played. So it's makes it very simple there.
But it makes home field advantage not really mean anything. I mean, and you get one game if you get the bye at that point.
If you get the first seed, you'd get 2. You'd get the AFC Championship in the second round.
No, but he's saying if you got rid of the AFC Championship.
He's saying he wants to move the Super Bowl to the higher seed gets home field.
No, he just said that if they're going to start bidding on the AFC NFC Championship games, no?
Right, which is he said
you're
less
having two
likely than his take. His take was that he wants the Super Bowl to be neutral site.
Okay.
I'm saying that'll never happen because you have to be able to sell tickets
Correct.
all year long. And you get two home playoff games if you get the bye.
Okay. I don't know.
He said it's more likely that the other happens.
Two separate conversations. My apologies, Elliot. Yeah, the first one was stop having cities bid on the Super Bowl. The higher seed gets to host it. And then I said, what I do think is more likely, just based on what we kind of came across during COVID, was the fact that the AFC, NFC championship game, I'm surprised that those are not bid on like the Super Bowl as far as that goes.
I see.
We got breaking news. We got breaking news from my favorite NFL organization.
Oh, no.
Joe Flacco's been benched.
No.
AR's starting the rest of the year.
No.
What a dysfunctional group of losers in Indianapolis. You pull your stud prospect after 10 starts of poor play because you don't want to watch him grow. Then the 39-year-old comes in and stinks, and turns out you don't need to develop him anyway. Let's just throw him back in there. Maybe playing games will help. Wow. This is really a shame because I had sworn to bet against the Colts the whole time that Joe Flacco was playing, and I was making a ton of money, which stinks that he's out now because now I'll bet on Anthony Richardson.
That sucks because the Bengals would have had such a good shot if Flacco stayed in there.
They would have.
I still think they have the same I mean, let's not pretend Anthony Richardson's been good. So I don't know. I mean, that's crazy. That's, by the way, that's
insane, man.
You can't do that.
How do you do that?
I miss Joe.
Good luck to the coach. I know you do. I bet you do. You guys mistreated Joe for the guy that doesn't play football and makes $2 trillion.
Stop it. We're past that. We
I don't know if we are, though.
I can't. Oh gosh.
Because when he comes out,
Deshaun is no longer a Brown.
When he comes out next season, on opening day, it's like we're gonna have to make jokes again.
Elliot already has drafts.
I do.
He's been practicing him in the mirror. But.
Yeah.
All right, dudes. We're out of time. That wraps it up for us on the radio side. Appreciate you. And until tomorrow. 1410 ESPN radio listeners, this has been Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. So, Elliot, we did 45 minutes. 45 minutes that first hour. And then 49 minutes the second. I was so close.
That's pretty good.
Close.
That's pretty good.
So, yeah. That's actually probably the least over that we've been in quite some time. So.
How about that?
There you go.
Take that, Mark Fetters. He said start late, quit early during the break. Uh-oh,
Mark.
I think we started on time.
Now we might just stay here in silence for the next 21 minutes.
We might just sit.
Let me ask you this, Justin Kinner. Would you rather have Jameis or Joe Flacco at this very second?
Ooh.
Man, I don't know. Jameis looked so bad last week, but Joe's looked so bad the last couple of weeks too. I mean, look, if you're depending on these level of guys, you're not in a good situation to begin with. They're good safety nets, obviously, but man, oh man, I miss Joe. I miss Joe. Everyone's more Jameis than I am, but I would pick Joe. I'd pick Flacco if the Colts cut him. Just let's
Did Flacco win an MVP?
Did he?
I don't know. Jameis did. 2 weeks ago.
Jameis won an MVP?
MVP.
Oh, MVP. No, he definitely never won an MVP.
Nickelodeon.
Flacco never got slimed last year. I feel like he did during that run.
I thought him and Amari Cooper did. I think.
Yes,
I think
that's right.
Cooper.
I think you're right. I think so. They're tied in MVPs. Jameis obviously has one more 30-30 season, but Flacco has the ring. Those will cancel out.
I got to do some research.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if Flacco's been slimed, it's going to be a close call there between the two. I'd still probably just take Jameis because, I mean, we haven't ever given post-LASIK Jameis a fair shot.
Flacco also won this
award.
award.
Yes. I'm looking at it now. There's Joe Flacco smiling. Oh, yeah,
stuff.
There's Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper, he slimed him, and then he slimed him back. It was great team camaraderie back then.
Remember when Amari Cooper was happy to be in Cleveland? Do you remember when he was happy?
Before he was dropping all those balls on purpose.
He wasn't dropping the balls on purpose. By the way, his last game with the Bills, 1 catch for 3 yards.
Yeah.
3 targets, 1 catch, 3 yards.
I think he got banged up.
I can't wait for him to come back.
He was hurt.
I can't wait for him to. Oh, but he wasn't hurt in Cleveland. It was just in Buffalo. He quit on Josh Allen.
He came out of the game.
Yeah, he wasn't. He didn't finish the game.
I'm not going to commit to that yet.
What do you mean?
Is that really what happened?
Yeah, he got hurt.
He's hurt. He's hurt.
You're assuming. Let's do
No,
some
he's
research
hurt.
here. When did he get taken? I know
He
he's
missed
hurt.
their last game.
I know he's hurt. He missed the last game, but the last game he played in, 3 targets, 1 catch, 3 yards.
Now I got to go look it up.
But he left early with that injury, no?
Do we know that? Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Do we
I'm not
know
gonna say
he
you're
didn't?
wrong.
Do we know he
No,
didn't?
hold on. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm not going to say you're right until we know. Like,
Okay, all right, that's fair.
I'm learning from my mistakes in the past, doubling down on shit that I don't really know. So, let's look. This.
I'm trying to find it.
This is good radio. Oh, we're not on radio, so that's good.
Oh, we're not on radio. This is
Amari Cooper.
So he definitely was hurt. Okay, so
He definitely got hurt in that game.
Bills schedule. Hold on, I'll find this.
He hurt his. Here we go. He hurt his wrist prior in the Week 8 game against Seattle. When did he leave the game? We need a time.
That's I don't remember seeing any report. I remember watching the highlights of that game. There was never, Amari Cooper left in the second quarter. Not saying he didn't. I don't recall that. And then it finds out a couple days into practice that he wasn't practicing and was going to be out for the next game.
I can't find a time.
I can't find it either. Damn, Kinner might be right.
Now we're just
Kinner might have had it. Maybe Josh Allen stinks.
Casey, I sent you. I sent you the video. We're going to relive the Browns' glory days of Amari Cooper and Joe Flacco.
Oh, very nice.
The Browns' glory days, yeah.
We were talking about worst losses earlier. We talked about the Steelers' loss. Where's Chad Henne playoff scramble rank for you?
Gosh, that was painful. 8 minutes. The defense.
I was going to say that had to have been. Yeah, that had to have been.
And let's be clear. Baker played great.
Phenomenal.
Baker was great that game.
And the targeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that had to have been a terrible loss.
They were going to score a touchdown on that Rashard Higgins catch that went to the back of the end zone, which, by the way, that's the rule, is what it is. Not going to complain. It stinks. But from that point on, but the Browns had a chance. They marched down the field and scored. They had it within a possession. And then, the defense couldn't get off the field. But, yeah, look, the Browns' glory days right here. Oh, look at how happy these guys were.
Cherry on top.
The cherry.
I love.
Look at Amari Cooper.
That's a sign of a good franchise when your glory days is an 11-win season when you get blown out in the first round of the playoffs.
Hey, shut up. I'm trying to watch this. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Oh, Joe. Just getting slimed. Does he return the favor? Oh, no, he just brought a buddy. That was great team camaraderie.
That's good stuff right there. That's good stuff.
He would have caught the balls that were thrown to him.
Irsay probably watched that video and was like, we got to start this guy.
Justin Edgel, $1.99 super chat. Jim Irsay fell off the wagon again. Correct, Kinner?
Wait, what?
You friends with Irsay?
I think they're saying you're friends with Irsay.
Oh, yeah, we prop each other up. We buy each other drinks. We're bad influences on one another. Jim, yeah. I don't know what's going on. Who's more foolish right now, Jim Irsay or Jerry Jones?
Jerry Jones yesterday with another doozy of a quote. He said, Kellen Moore knew where the sun was. Kellen Moore hasn't been the Cowboys OC in 3 years.
Oh, that's just brutal. They're
2 years?
They're cleaning house this year, right?
I would assume. There's no way they bring Mike back. It's going to be Bill, if I had to guess.
We're not. We're not talking
terrible.
Politics here, but Jerry Jones is giving me major Biden vibes. We're not talking politics. We're just talking about
Stevens running it.
Yeah, I mean, should, but I think Jerry's running everything still. Yeah, I think he's running everything. And I think he pays attention to what people complain about because he gets very defensive. I mean, the fact that they asked about curtains and his smart ass comment was, "Well, let's just tear the whole building down."
Well, that's what it seems like with this conversation. A lot of people don't understand about curtains. You have to build them from the ground up. You can't just put curtains in.
Yeah.
You got to build them from the base of the building.
Correct.
It's not an easy. You're asking Jerry to bend over backwards here.
Yeah, you can't just drape over all your problems. That's not how it works. Jim Irsay, or not Jim Irsay, Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones also went off on that reporter this year. So on top of all of this, he had the Jamie Foxx incident, and then after all that, this is just
We're referring
a disaster.
to that as the Jamie Foxx incident.
I don't know how else I'm supposed to say.
I don't think Jamie Foxx had much, if any, to do with that incident.
Well, but he was there, and that's all I can describe.
That's all you can say.
That's all I can describe it. But listen, good luck to the Dallas Cowboys this offseason figuring out that mess. You don't have a quarterback.
Well, that's the thing, is they actually have the most expensive quarterback.
Yeah, I know. but they don't.
That is the fun part about
well.
where the Cowboys are at now. Is your best player is a pending free agent that you need to extend at Micah Parsons, and you played your crap quarterback $60 million a year, and he's not even. I mean, he had a tasty sounding injury though. Hammy popped off the bone.
Jacob.
Does that not sound yummy to you?
No.
Hammy off the bone,
God,
slide right off the bone.
You're a sicko.
You had good barbecue. They just meat falls right off the bone. Happened to Dak.
You're a sicko.
Like, and now there's all the talks of Dion going to Dallas to be the head coach. Dallas can be bad enough to draft Shador. I don't know. By the way, I am getting tired of hearing that. Like that.
What do you do with the money then? How does that work? Hold on. How would that work financially?
You got a rookie quarterback at that point. Like, that's kind of.
And you're paying $60 million to his backup? Man.
But the difference is, so here's the thing about Dak. It's not like the bad and Russell Wilson's turned out to be pretty good, and they found someone to take him. And Dak's way better than Russell Wilson.
Well, they found someone to take him. Aren't they paying him? Like, aren't the Broncos still paying him?
Yeah. But look what they got Bo Nix, and it would be the same thing for Dak. I'm not saying it's the best route to go, but there is a way out. But the problem, for Cleveland, Russell Wilson could still play. All right, Dak Prescott could still play. No one thinks that Deshaun could play, so they just have to sit there and deal with it. They just have to sit there and deal with it. So that's why, it's a lot, $60 million. But if they pay some of it, there will be a team out there that'll take Dak in a heartbeat. And I think there'll be more people lining up to take Dak than what were lining up to take Russell Wilson at that time, just because people weren't sure what was left for Russell Wilson. I think there's a lot left for Dak, and I don't think Dak is elite I don't think Dak is putting him up there with Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Justin Herberts, and Lamar's of the world, but I think he's in that second tier. Would you put him there? Or would you put
I would.
Dak?
I would put Dak in that second tier. I'm looking at his contract right now. They have a potential out in 2028 at 4 years, $230, with only $34 million in dead cap. Without a restructure as of right now, Dak Prescott's cap hit next year is $89 million.
And they
have to fix something.
Good luck. And
89, 68,
America's team.
62,
That's America's
75.
team. That's America's team.
How are you going to work around that contract?
And CD got he got paid. And by the way, that combo, and that's why, I'm not saying the Bengals are in that spot too, because they're going to play their quarterback, and their quarterback's good. And Dak's good too, but if there's all this rumblings, because Mike McCarthy's gone after this year. I think
for sure,
he's
no question.
Gone. Jerry Jones is running out of patience. This team is bad. We didn't even talk about the fact that Zeke just wasn't showing up for meetings, and he played last week. But the week before they benched him, they didn't even let him go on the road.
He had a big fumble last week.
They're a dumpster fire, and Dallas was atrocious against Philly. My parents went to that game. They spent a lot of money on tickets just to go watch that dumpster fire of a mess. And they make fun of me for being a Browns fan, but I think we all just love miserable football teams. I think that's really what it comes down to, me and my family. So, but yeah, wild stuff. But or you just keep Dak and you try to figure it out. I don't know. I don't know what Dallas does if that's the case. But yeah, there was a lot of rumblings earlier in the week that Dallas is going to try to convince Deion Sanders to come coach the Dallas Cowboys.
That'd be nuts. What a jump that would be.
I
guess it's a pretty big jump, Colorado to the NFL. I guess it's a relatively similar jump from Jackson State to the Power 4, though. Power 5 at the time. That's crazy. That would certainly be crazy.
I feel like if any other coach did what Deion's doing, we'd make fun of it. But because it's Deion, we just chalk it up to Deion. Deion just continuously pulling I'm not going to let my son go there. I'm not going to let Travis Hunter go there. That's weird. I don't know why I don't like it.
Yeah, it's
technically he's not doing anything wrong. So it is weird. It's not just me that thinks that. I don't know. He said that multiple times.
Yeah, I had the same take when it was talked about that Caleb was going to do that. Bart was talking about that Burrow was going to do that when he was coming out. Anytime you get a bona fide QB prospect, and the ones that usually do this are a lot better QB prospects than Shedeur. It's just because of his name value bumps him up quite a bit. I've said a lot about Shedeur when it comes to NFL draft. At this point, after watching this season, I do think he's the number one quarterback in this draft class. I think he's the best quarterback in this draft class. I do not think in any sense of the word he's a good enough prospect to demand where he goes. There's a very, very small list of prospects that can say yes or no to a team. We saw Eli Manning do it. It would have sucked if it was the Bengals, but it would have been fine with a guy of Joe Burrow's caliber doing it. I think with Shedeur Sanders here, you got to be happy with where you go. And I don't think he's going to be the number one pick in this draft. And to be arguing about, you can't take me here, I'm not going to sign when you're being picked 4 or 5, that's That's certainly not a good look. I don't think it's going to happen. With Shedeur requesting where he goes, I think he's going to just sign his contract and happily go.
Let me ask you this, because he said it about Shedeur, but he did one of the Fox Sports shows yesterday with Joy Taylor and Keyshawn and them. So he went on there. He said that about Shedeur, but he also said it about Travis Hunter, who's not his son. But he is saying that he is going to make sure that Travis Hunter goes to the right situation. Let's say the Bengals are up. They have a chance to get Travis Hunter. Do you think the Bengals are a situation that old Dion would allow Travis Hunter to go to?
How much control do you have over a guy that's not your son?
I don't know. That seems
It's weird.
insane. It seems insane, but I don't know.
I think the Travis Hunter thing is weird. Like him saying it about Shedeur, it's kind of expected. Get it, understand it. Still annoying,
Other people have done
weird.
it. Other people have done that. It's fair. It's fair game.
I mean, the Manning, you mentioned it, Jake, but to do it about someone, like that'd be like Nick Saban doing that for any of his players. Yeah. They're not his kids. Like he's saying that about Travis Hunter and he said it yesterday. I went back and listened. I was making sure that it wasn't him saying that about Shedeur. It got weird when he said he'll make sure that Travis Hunter goes to the right situation. That's where I'm like, how? What will you do? Like, will you just say, hey, don't draft him. He's not going to play for you. Will he put those feelers out there? I think that's weird business. I don't think that's good business. But
this NFL draft, not quite as much on those two guys, but this NFL draft right now is screaming to me, what do you do at the top? Yeah. Because you have Jacksonville, the Giants, Tennessee, Cleveland, and Vegas picking in the top 5. What do you do? What do any of those teams do? I don't think there's a single quarterback good enough to be a top 5 pick. 4 of those 5 teams need a quarterback.
No.
And you're Jacksonville. You're really taking Travis Hunter at 1? You got a lot of holes on that team. You're going to take a two-way player?
Nah.
Right. Like, this is going to be a very weird draft as it shakes out. I don't know how many elite prospects there are.
That's why Kinner's draft would be so much better in this situation.
Yeah, I absolutely think that
Bengals get Travis Hunter. Bengals get first team out, gets the first what was it? First team out gets the first overall pick.
Yeah, let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at what how that would shake out as far as that. Let me go to the NFL standings here. All right, if it started today, so that would be. Well, again, having to figure this out. I don't feel like doing all the math, but it would be the Colts. It would be the Colts. The Colts would have, and them and the Seahawks, that they would have, right there in the mix. So in the mix for my draft suggestion, it would be teams like the Rams, the Colts, and the Seahawks all in position to get the number 1 overall draft pick. I'm here to tell you right now, Cleveland, if they're picking at the top, and I don't mean like number 1 overall, but if they're in the top 3, I want them to take Genty. I don't care. I take a running back. I know that sounds absolutely wild. At this point, you got to take a playmaker. I think Nick Chubb does. I don't think he's going to get back to old form. I think that last injury, I think counting on that, I think it's a feel-good story now. You let him finish out the season. Goodbye, Nick Chubb. But I think you have to go get a dominant running back at this point. This is the draft to do it because there's really not a whole lot else out there. Like, I just don't think that there is. It's silly to take a running back high in the draft. I get that. But this draft I don't think is that good. Or you trade back. I don't know. But we'll see. Someone's going to take Genty. Someone's going to take him in the top 10.
I don't know about that.
I think so, dude. Top 10?
I don't think so.
Maybe not top 5. I think top 10.
I really don't think so. We'll see how this progresses, but I really don't think so. I think there'll be 5 quarterbacks to go in the top 10, and then you don't have a whole lot of space left for a running back.
Yeah.
I keep circling G&T to Dallas. I think that's the pick where he's going to go because they have the worst run game in football, and he's from there. I think Jerry likes to pull that kind of stuff, and they're certainly going to be pretty bad. If they sneak into the top 10, they could certainly take him because Jerry just likes to pick fast skill players. So
God, that would be crazy if the Cowboys are in the top 10.
That would fit right in line. They're 11 right now, so certainly right within striking distance, but I'd be shocked if G&T went top 10.
All right, well, we are going to cut it a little short.
Hey, have fun.
Have
fun in Toledo, Kenner. That's my alma mater.
Your alma mater.
I think I wrote my name maybe in some wet concrete when I was last there. So try to find it.
Your little handprint in there.
Yeah, I did my handprint. It's a really tiny hand.
All right, everybody. All right, dudes. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Until tomorrow, this has been Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Adios.
Box lunch later.